Okay, the time being 6 o'clock, we will call this meeting to order. If you would all join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, first agenda item is public service announcements. Pat?
I think Evelyn is first on our list.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yep. So I usually see you guys at least.
Could I just ask you to state your name?
Yes, Evelyn Thorin, Chairman of the Arts and Technology Education Fund Committee, 18 Pinewood Road.
Thank you.
So usually I see you at least twice a year. And this is the 30th year of the Arts and Technology Education Fund. And so in case someone is in the audience listening, when we did town meeting in the fall, there were many people that had never heard about us, even though we've been around a long time. So it was established in 1996 by a vote of the town meeting that created a bylaw. I think we are the only education fund in the Commonwealth that has a bylaw. All the others are governed by whatever the committees are, generally like many of the committees that we have in town. We currently have a 9-member committee. There are 2 vacancies on that committee. I know that one person may not have notified Paul yet. And we have tweaked that bylaw several times over the past 30 years. We did in the fall in order to give more flexibility to the committee on when they could make the awards and to whom they could make the awards. So it's now a little bit more liberal and not so restricted as the original bylaw. And Paul said that it was approved and that the changes are being made. So we'll be able to move forward with that with whatever the desires are of the current committee. So one of the members of the committee is always the standing member, and that is the superintendent of schools, whoever that may be, or his designee or her designee. And Dr. Lang comes to all our meetings and has an awful lot of input, and when he doesn't have that input, then Dr. Hirsch has input also. So we've become a very cooperative and collaborative unit with the school committee. When we make awards, those awards to the staff of the Chelmsford Public School does not become part of the budget. It is for enhancement or enrichment of the current curriculum. It covers quite a bit of territory. The applications, we have a new format for that. There's a website for the school committee and the website for the town where that application is found. So anybody listening, they need to use the brand new application so that everybody is more consistent. We've seen people use different ones and we have some holes in some of the information that we have requested. So those applications are due on March 31st, and that's why I'm before you tonight, just to make sure that we publicly announce that. And then the committee, even though this year we're going to have those awards be spent in the next fiscal year, we are most likely to change it and may have 2 types of awards. But when we decide what it is, then I'll come before you so that everyone will know what it is we're doing and when it is that we're going to do that. Some people may wonder how we fund the Arts and Technology Education Committee, and it's funded through the receipts. If you get your real estate tax bill or an excise tax bill, there's a tear-off. And that tear-off with the 2 receipts, the one that goes to the town, the one that you keep for your records, that would designate how much money you would like to donate to it. Or you could round up either of the bills, but make sure that it's designated how much money goes into that fund and just don't round up because they wouldn't know that you were going to want to put it into the Arts and Technology Education Fund. Now, all of those donations are anonymous. We don't know who makes them unless they want us to know that they're making a donation. So we had created a program within the school system that if any of the parents wanted to make a donation for one of the teachers, then that we do acknowledge that, and we have thank you notes, and we go back and forth, and we make sure that everybody is acknowledged with regard to that program that we have. When George Ripsum, who was one of the founders with me in 1996 for the Arts and Technology Education Fund, passed away, there was quite a number of people that made donations to the Arts and Technology Education Fund in the town in his memory. And then what we did was we got the information from John Souza, and we wrote notes of thank you to those individuals. So if somebody had something like that, it is an opportunity. You know, if you didn't want to send flowers, you can always do something like that, and we will acknowledge that. And we would also come before you to also acknowledge that when I do my updates to you as for the committee. So I don't know if you have any questions, but like I said, this is just the public announcement that the applications will be due at the end of the month.
Thank you, Evelyn. Any questions or comments for Evelyn?
Okay, thank you very much.
Evelyn, thank you so much. Let me just jump in front of you, Pat. I neglected to do one thing at the opening of the meeting. This is a live broadcast. We are being recorded, and we're being recorded by Chelmsford Telemedia for future viewing by the general public. So just, I forgot to mention that at the opening of the meeting and wanted to get that out. Take it away, Pat.
Okay, at our next meeting, the Chelmsford Select Board and the School Committee are going to meet on March 30th, 2026, to appoint one representative to the Neshoba Valley Technical High School Committee for a 3-year term ending March 31st, 2029. Applications are available on the town website, and they should be forwarded to the town manager's office by 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 24th, 2026. There's going to be a volunteer fair at the Chelmsford Senior Center on Saturday, March 28th from 1 to 4 p.m. This volunteer fair is sponsored by the library and the Senior Center, and there'll be many, many volunteer opportunities there from nonprofits, from community groups, and others. So stop by for the volunteer fair. At 2 p.m., there's going to be a couple of longtime Chelmsford volunteers that we'll be recognizing, and it'd be wonderful to have a good turnout there to show their appreciation to those volunteers. The Chelmsford Town election is going to happen on Tuesday, April 7th, 2026. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Some deadlines to keep in mind: Friday, March 27th, 2026 at 5 p.m. is the last day you can register to vote for that election. Tuesday, March 31st at 5 p.m. is the last day that you can apply for a ballot by mail for the town election. And Monday, April 26th is the last day at noon that day to vote absentee in person for the April town election. There will be no early voting in person. So again, be sure to vote Tuesday, April 7th, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at your local polling location.
Thank you, Pat. The next item on the agenda is general public input. Do we have anybody in the audience that wishes to speak this evening? Seeing none. Paul, nobody on Zoom? Okay. We'll move to committee vacancies. Pat?
Okay, as of today, we have the following committee vacancies. We have one seat available on the Age-Friendly Implementation Committee, also one on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, one vacancy on the CCA Town Hall Advisory Committee, and on the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee. There are 5 vacancies on the Commission on Disabilities, 1 vacancy on the Conservation Commission, 2 vacancies on the Council on Aging Board, 1 vacancy on the Cultural Council, 2 vacancies on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, 4 vacancies on the Holiday Decorating Committee, 1 vacancy on the Military Community Covenant Task Force, and the Parade Committee welcomes all applicants. If you're interested in applying for any of these vacancies, you can fill out an application available on the town website or at the town manager's office.
Thank you, Pat. The next item on the agenda this evening is reports and presentations. So the first item that we'll have is a presentation and a report from Paul McKinley at Weston and Sampson Engineers. Paul's a licensed site professional. He'll be discussing PFAS sampling results at 54 Richardson Road and proposed upgrades to the PFAS remediation system. And I believe we have Paul on Zoom this evening. So, Paul?
And Linda Cook is also joining Paul. Good evening, Paul.
Yes, I am joined by my colleague Linda Cook.
you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Too well.
All right. And it looks like I'm not able to share screen.
I can just scroll through it. Just tell me next slide if you want.
Okay, will do, will do. So we're here this evening. It was postponed from February 23rd. I think we're all dug out now and we've got some melting going on. But wanted to give you an overview of some of the recent data that we've collected at 54 Richardson site. Just to set the table again, there has been a release of PFAS. That's the forever chemical that you see in the news oftentimes. And we, to address that, we've installed a pump and treat system that's been operating for several years now. And we're going to give you an overview of some of the data that we've been collecting. So some positive trends that we're seeing in the data. It looks like the remedial system is working as intended. We're very encouraged by some of the data that we're seeing. And Lynn is going to walk through some of the challenges on our site and look at some of the data specifically as it relates to background and the sources that are on the site. So just real quickly, pump and treat system's been operating since July 2022. Pumped and treated about 147 million gallons. System's been operating great, no downtime. If you go to the next slide, just going to buzz through a few of these just so we can save some time for the meat of the presentation here. So, the Mass DEP standard for PFAS, it's called PFAS 6. It's a sum of 6 compounds, and that standard is at 20 parts per trillion. So, as you can imagine, 20 parts per trillion is a very, very low level. Some of the data shows a little bit of variation over time. We had one in MW1, a little bit of variation, but we look at, we've been monitoring this for several years now. We're looking at overall trends, which are good. So just, hit a few of these bullets. MW1 is in the source area. We had a little bit of a blip this time, but we really think that's an anomaly. The concentrations have come down from a high of about 1,400 to below 20, below the regulatory standard, 20 parts per trillion. So in the source area, the remedial system has been super effective. We had a few increases out of our 30 well network. So there's a few listed there, about a half a dozen wells. But really, again, this is within the historical variability of those wells. Right from the get-go, there's really been a couple of on-site sources at the 54 Richardson Road property that we've been concerned with. One of them is in the dog park area, and we'll show you a figure shortly on this. But the dog park area to the north, around monitoring well 104, has always been a concern, and it's been on the DEP's radar as well. And then there are other sources, off-site sources that we're seeing from our chemical signature. Linda will walk you through some of those and why we think those are off-site sources, but those will be a little bit of a challenge for us to address during closure. And then one of the encouraging signs we're seeing here is that some of the actual chemical ratios and profiles that we're seeing are actually transitioning to the background. So some of our remedial efforts in the source area have actually been effective. So it's removing the source of the release, and now it's transitioning to this offsite or background type of signature. So it's actually showing that we're being effective at remediating the site. So here's a picture of the wells that are exceeding. Again, we have a lot of wells on the site. Just want to focus on a few areas. To the north is the dog park. 104 is an area that we need to address, and we'll get into a proposed remedial system expansion shortly. But if you look to the north, just wanted to highlight a few areas that we don't think are associated with the source of the release. MW116 to the north, MW3 to the right or to the east, and MW101 to the southwest. Those are sort of a triangle on the corners of the site that we don't think are associated with the on-site release. Everything in the middle we do think is an on-site source, but those outliers on sort of the periphery of the site we think are related to other sources. Just before we leave the site, I just wanted to talk about some of the improvements that we've made. I know, in previous presentations, sometimes we get a question is, when are we going to see the positive effects? And I just wanted to sort of highlight right underneath the site map on the sort of top on the northwest side, There's a set of wells up there. That's on the North Chelmsford Water District property, and they're the 114 wells. And I wish, I apologize, wish we had highlighted them. But those wells have consistently exceeded standards for several years of monitoring as we got in. Yeah, thank you. If you could, zoom in again. Actually, right below this, the map and site map, those red wells. Yes, right in there, and they're the 114. So right underneath that map there. So
Paul, you're cutting in and out. Your audio is cutting in and out. Now you're out.
is that better if I turn the video off?
Yeah, do that. Turn the video. Yeah, that's great. Okay, that's great.
Okay. So those 114 wells, I just want to highlight those wells as a indicator of how the remedial system is being effective. It's taken a few years of operation to get there, but those wells for years of monitoring were consistently above the regulatory standard of 20 parts per trillion. But both of those wells, there's a shallow and a deep one, are actually showing signs of improvement. In the last 5 monitoring rounds, in the shallow one, 4 out of the 5 events, and 3 out of 5 in the deeper have actually been below standards. So just a illustration of how the remedial system is actually making positive gains here, and the groundwater, the impacted groundwater that's leaving 54 Richardson is improving as it migrates right to left on the screen and heads towards the bone meal production wells. We're seeing improvement in water quality now, generally trending below the regulatory standard. And that's in addition to the source area, right where we're treating the water, and a lot of the outlying wells. But just as a illustration, again, for years those wells were above standards, but 3 out of 5 and 4 out of 5 of the last events in those 2 wells are actually below standards. So it's really trending in the right direction. If you go to the next slide. So here, I'm just going to gloss over this quickly. This is our most impacted well on site, monitoring well MW1. And I mentioned this before, it's down from 1,400 parts per trillion down to consistently has been below standards. We had a little bit of a blip last round, but really we think that's just a sampling or a laboratory anomaly. We'll continue to monitor it, but it really, the remedial system in the source area has really done yeoman's work. Next slide. So, and I mentioned this before, but these are the wells that we think are attributable to the on-site release of PFAS. Focusing on MW 104 in the dog park area to the north, this well does appear to represent a separate source, and as I'll address shortly here, we're proposing to actually expand the remedial system to address that area of the site. It's been a concern of Mass DEP. The wells are still consistently above standards, so the thought here is we're going to expand the remedial system to address that remaining source of impacts and really take care of some of these residual wells and hopefully set us up for closure in the near future. Next slide. As I mentioned before, these are sort of the periphery wells that are different source.
Paul, you cut out again.
Yep.
Paul, can you hear me all right? I know you.
Yes.
Okay, now
Okay,
you're back.
am I
Go
back?
ahead. Try it again. You're about the.
Yeah. All right. One more time. So these are the wells that we think are alternate sources of PFAS, which are still affecting groundwater quality at the site, but not something that we're going to be able to address for closure. But these represent background, other contributing sources to the PFAS concentrations we're seeing on the site. Next slide. I will mention, so as part of our remedial efforts, one thing we did in this since the last presentation is the point of infiltration of the PFAS. We actually suspect it is a drain, which was removed. We actually excavated and removed the drain itself and some impacted soil, which was impacted by PFAS, and we'll remove that off the site. But as a part of removing a potential ongoing leaching source of the PFAS to groundwater, we did soil removal. Next slide. As part of the remedial system upgrade, it's really a two-phase approach. Last presentation, I think we discussed, we have upgraded the treatment side of the remedial system. We expanded the treatment system with 2 more treatment vessels. to expand the flow rate or the zone of capture we can capture with that pump and treat system. So now we can operate at a higher flow rate, which increases the zone of capture, and we can grab more PFAS from the outlying wells. And that's fully operational at the moment. And we want to couple this with, if you go to the next slide, with an expansion of the remedial system. So here is a pictorial of the expanded treatment system. The yellow line is basically a zone of capture on a new remedial well. We're looking to put a recovery well. It's the yellow dot near that sort of the influx of that yellow horseshoe, Paul. If you go to the top of that yellow horseshoe, yeah, there's a yellow dot there. That's the new recovery well right there.
Paul, you cut out again.
Okay,
Oh, now you're back.
You got me back?
Now you're back. Yeah.
All right, perfect. So that's a proposed new recovery well. We'll put that to the treatment system, and with that expanded ability to handle more volume of water, it'll capture that area of PFAS in the dog park area. Specifically, that well MW104 and some of the outliers are still trending above standards. The original treatment system depicted in the red line and with the zone of capture doesn't cover that area. So with the expanded treatment system area, we hope to address that dog park area of the PFAS plume and push the site towards closure. Next slide. Linda?
Yeah, sure. Hi, so I support Paul in evaluating the data and fingerprinting that data. We call it forensic analysis. And there are several tools that we use for this. I have discussed this slide before, but basically this is just a histogram showing the various PFAS compounds that are present in the samples, and the height of the bar is the relative concentration of those compounds. For the DPW source, what we see is a predominantly PFOS source. So it's really clear from this histogram that fingerprint, it has a lot of PFOS and just really trace levels of the other components. Whereas when we look at the background, there's a different profile. So this evaluating data in this way allows us to see those differences and opine on things that may be different from what our source is. So the bottom graph is the background that we're seeing at MW3, just up gradient from the site. Next slide. As we look at that, the background levels, as Paul was saying, right now we're remediating the site where, we're pumping and treating for that PFOS, but what we're also treating for, just by nature of it, is this background signature that's up gradient. It's coming onto our site, and so that our treatment system treats that as well. But what's really important to note here, and why we address this each time, is that that dashed black line is at 4 nanograms per liter, or PPT. That is EPA's, pending MCL for the two compounds PFOS and PFOA. And as you can see here in our background, PFOA is almost continually above that threshold concentration of 4 PPT, and PFOS bounces around that. And for the last 4 rounds has been, again, above that EPA upcoming MCL. So this is something that we really need to consider and, leave that in Paul's hands. But as we get to move towards closure, addressing what the upgradient or background, I call it regional background concentration is, will be important. Next slide. So here again are just those trends at MW3. Here I'm providing the total PFAS 6 concentration, which is what is currently regulated. And you can see out of the last 4 rounds, 3 of those rounds, that summed PFAS 6 concentration up gradient also exceeded the mass standards. Next slide. Here's a similar slide, and now we're looking at MW4, which is in the dog park area. And we've seen consistent inconsistency at this well. You know, back in 2023, we had concentrations that were close to 200 for PFAS 6, with a signature that looked very much like the PFOS signature we see at the primary area of the site. Those concentrations, we were so hopeful, those concentrations dropped down below 20 for a while. But again, just last spring, we saw an increase. And again, in November, it seemed like that concentration was ticking up again. So because of this variability and the increases and the PFOS dominant source here, that is why this expansion into the dog park area is necessary. Next slide. So we were talking about this transition, you know, this is one of those really positive things that we're seeing is some of our source area profiles. We're going to focus on MW 107 on the left and MW 110 on the right. Back in 2022, the signature at those two wells was predominantly PFOS with concentrations well over 20, nanograms per liter itself. And so you can see that I've shaded where the PFOS, the bar for the PFOS concentration is. But now when we look at November in 2025, you can see that that PFOS concentration relative to the other contaminants in the sample has come down, and it's dropped, by an order of, it's probably 20% what it was back in 22. This is a huge success story. We are aiding and pulling that PFOS from the well, capturing and treating that. And this transition to a background signature is really positive for us. Next slide. So we touch on this again, these, EPA's maximum contaminant levels, they're coming. We believe that for PFOS and PFOA, those, what they originally proposed of 4 PPT will in fact, their intent is for those to stay at 4 PPT, that whether the other compounds that they originally proposed MCLs for, whether those stay or whether those are eliminated, there's still uncertainty. It looks like they'll be eliminated. But really, we are seeing PFOS and PFOA concentrations greater than this 4 PPT upgrading into ourselves. So background to ourselves, we're seeing exceedances of this without any point source impacts. Next slide. And again, it's just this shift. Will they shift from what they currently propose to just the 2? I believe that's what will happen. I do also believe that they will stay at the 4 nanograms per liter. Is based on everything I read. I don't believe those will change. So we will be dealing with this background at the site that already exceeds the EPA MCLs. Next slide. I think back to Paul.
Yep. So just to wrap up here, I mean, some really great positive signs on the operation of the pump and treat remedial system. Concentrations have really decreased orders of magnitude in the source area. We're really seeing positive effects in the wells that are on the North Chelmsford Water District, with some signs in the last year that they're trending below standards in response to the operation of the pump and treat system. And then, as Linda just walked through as well, in the source area itself, we're also seeing a change in the chemical sort of makeup here, and it's like trending towards the background signature here as we continue to clean up the release of PFOS that occurred on 54 Richardson Road. So really, the takeaways, the pump and treat system is really been effective. We propose to expand the remedial system over into the dog park to treat that area of the site, which is not currently being addressed by the remedial system, to address that on-site source. And we've got our eye on the upcoming regulatory changes. These maximum contaminant levels, they're going down, but as our current remedial system is making gains, we are trending towards this limit. So, we have challenges because we have the background or regional background sources, as Linda alluded to, coming onto the site. But that's part of our challenge is to unravel those two, try and keep them separate in the the regulators' eyes, to address our release versus the regional background. So that's all we have tonight.
Thank you, Paul. Does any board members have any questions or comments for Paul or his partner?
So Paul, you sampled out there in last month, February, right? So maybe see some results next month?
Too snowy. We actually
Oh.
had to do this last year as well. So we
Oh,
bumped
okay.
it to March. We're actually out there March 25th to the 27th.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you're coming, you haven't done it yet. You'll be out there in the next
We
couple
have
weeks.
not, yes.
Okay.
A lot of snow. It looks like it's melting in the next few weeks, but there's a lot of wells out there. So
Okay.
we actually pushed February's event till late March in hopes the snow is gone.
Yeah, it's getting a good head start today and tomorrow, so it's
Yeah,
pretty good
it's-
shape.
Looking good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Questions from the board? Seeing none. Paul, so we're upgrading and expanding the system, and we're going to be covering a larger area, so to speak. Do we expect with the upgrade and expansion that will help us bring down levels just by upgrading and expanding the system, or is this really just to capture more of the problem up at MW 104, so to speak?
Yeah, no, I think with the plan here with the expansion of the system, the current system as we operate it pumps at about 100 gallons per minute. It isn't quite capturing that dog park area. As Linda put the graph up, it was sort of the results there bounced around a little bit. It actually was trending below standards, but then it's just that well is very variable, and it's bouncing above consistently above standards as well. So we need to address it. It's on DEP's radar as an on-site source. It's consistently above standards. It looks to be from a hydraulic flow direction up gradient and affecting potentially the Bomea wells down gradient. So we want to expand the remedial system with the new we call it recovery well 2. And really it takes advantage of the upgraded remedial system. We actually allowed more capacity with those additional treatment vessels last year. So we want to take advantage of that. And really, what we look at as a sort of a lower cost option here to use the tools that we have in place, expand the remedial system and catch that residual PFAS. So it'll be, treating that area of the site, and with some luck here, we'll see the same effects that we were seeing in that 114 cluster, and that those concentrations are now trending below standards before it gets to the Bomea wells.
So it would be reasonable to slightly expect some improvement.
No, yes, absolutely. So
Yes.
hopefully this is a takeaway that you've got from here. We've gotten many lines of evidence here that the remedial system is being effective. It looks like the groundwater quality as it's migrating to the North Chelmsford Water District is improving as well. Early on in the operation, and as I did these presentations, got questions of like, when are we going to see the effects? Here we're seeing the concrete effects of improved water quality on North Chelmsford Water District. So we should be seeing the same once we get that additional remedial leg in place.
Excellent. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just have one question. So given that the at least some of the results are trending so positively, I guess maybe this is an unrealistic question. How long will we expect this system to be there? Forever?
Well, this is unfortunate, and I don't know, you caught this, right? So the Mass DEP's current standard, it's a composite of 6 of the PFAS compounds for a total of 20 parts per trillion. Now, if you saw from those last 2 slides, PFOS, which is the predominant compound, PFAS compound that was released at 54 Richardson Road, that standard is going to 4 parts per trillion. So they're moving the goalpost on us a little bit. If we're looking at like the MW1 trends, we were actually, almost there at the 20 parts per trillion regulatory threshold, but we need to be mindful of this change. Mass DEP will hold us to that as a remedial goal. It's just a few years out. So now our goalpost is 4 parts per trillion for the PFOS. But as we're trending, downwards, I don't want to put a date on it, but we're certainly moving in the right direction. But it's more challenging with the 4 parts per trillion rather than the 20. So one of the advantages of this, pump and treat system, we were looking at different remedial technologies. We are, able to continue operating it to drive those concentrations down to the 4 parts per trillion and the remedial standard. So we're going to take advantage of that and continue to push that number towards our goal.
But Paul, at some point, if the levels become the background, I
Yes.
mean, the state's not going to allow it, not going to want us to just treat forever because it's the everywhere chemicals in the environment, would they?
That's right. I mean, and this is why we spend time on every presentation sort of highlighting the, what's on site and attributable to the 54 Richardson PFOS, dominated release versus what's coming from what we term as regional background or other sites, other sources that are contributing PFAS, in general to the PFAS levels that we're seeing. Yes, this is the graphic here. So, 116, the MW3, which is upgrading in background, and 101 appears to be a different source as well. And this is, we're seeing this in Cold Springs Brook, which is the stream that circumnavigates the site. So this is the challenge, is that we need to separate out what's, attributable to the 54 Richardson release versus what's background, and make that case for closure.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? Paul, thank you very much for coming in and informing us this evening, and we'll look forward to your next report after you get some sampling done when all the snow goes away.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Linda. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, we have Department of Public Works Director Christine Clancy, and she's going to talk about our snow and ice removal budget expenditures and notice of intent to lay out Proctor Road as a public way in the 2026 construction season road and sidewalk improvement plan. Good evening.
Good evening. So yes, on this nice spring-like day, I'm happy to report on the snow and ice budget. We do provide this report really annually to you. I guess we've been fortunate in the recent years where we've had plenty of budget available as we approach the end of the snow and ice season. This year we have had really a winter like we don't want to remember this winter.
Yes,
I think the last winter where we overran our budget was 2015, and there's differences between this winter and that winter, but there's a lot of similarities. We've had a number more events than we've had in the past few years. We have a budget of $1.15 million in the DPW budget. Historically, when I speak back the past 5, really since 2015, we have not overspent it. This report is updating that when I pulled this data together, it was as of February 24th, we had overspent it by about $373,000. Last week we had 2 events, so that number is growing. We're not fully out of the winter yet, but the weather's looking good. We're still looking, we have to really get out of March, I would say. So this winter also, so just to kind of give a summary of statistics, we had this is as of February 24th, we had over 22 snow and ice events, 8 were plowable, 3 included brine. The type of events varied. Sometimes this is an icing event where we apply a lot of salt. Salt now is costing $73 a ton. It costs more than asphalt, so it's expensive. We spent over $500,000 in salt so far this throughout from our budget. A lot of our storms, we're applying salt, we're also plowing. 8 of the events were plowable events. We have we had freezing rain, we had these dustings of snows. We also had a blizzard, the recent blizzard. I know the South Shore was hit more, harshly than we were, but that was a blizzard where we were plowing all day, even though we got only 11 inches of snow. We also had a larger event in January where we had over 20 inches, just about 20 inches of snow. So all those events, the larger events, they cost a lot. Like the January 25th, 26th, that alone was about $200,000, just in terms of our labor and the materials and the the equipment repairs. This is snow and ice, within the roadways, with the sidewalks. This includes our in-house costs, also all of our contractors. We did track the overall amount of that we spent in that recent blizzard because that was declared a state of emergency. It seems like that funds will probably be more spent towards or put towards the South Shore communities, but we did track that separately. And a lot of these events too occurred over the weekends and nights, and so that is
Correct me
where
if I'm wrong, but yeah, these
a
are
lot of
a lot of
them.
overtime.
And I just want to actually take a moment to thank our DPW staff that work so many hours. I mean, everyone's ready for this winter to be over, but I can tell you they most certainly are. And I mean, these people, I did learn to plow this winter. So happy, and I was, it's very, very it's very tiring. It's exhausting, and they're there to the end of the storm. So really, thank you so much to them. There was one event, I think it was 52 hours of time that they were just spending just to get through the storm. They do take breaks, they do rest. They need obviously they need that, but really it's exhausting. And so really thank you to really my team. They did it. I think they did an amazing job.
Agreed.
Joe Erickson, our highway superintendent, Dave Irvine. So really great. I mean, really the whole staff. They did in our facilities help with all the parking lots. We have to clear the sidewalks after. So after we finish the roads, they're going out to make sure we can open school to plow all the sidewalks as well. So really a great effort. Happy to see spring come before us. I did provide also just total, so we do track the total, we put this in the annual report. I think I'm tracking closer to 70 inches of snow now, whereas I know historically we've looked at like 30, 40 inches. So significant events, a lot of snowfall. And I also provided just a breakdown of how we are overrunning that. So we've spent to date, as of 2/24, $1.5 million, and the total budget was 1.5. So it all is tracked by between overtime, equipment repairs, plow contractors. Like I said, we did that specialized labor is that blizzard, just in case we were going to seek some additional or seek reimbursement, but I think that is focused more, that reimbursement is focused more on the South Shore and salt alone, so just spending so much money and material. We're not completely out of the winter, so I hope we are, but we still are tracking. There's a couple, potentially, like a small storm where we might have to go out and salt one night, so there's still potential for, to have, remaining winter. And we like to replenish some of the shed too. So maybe not fully, but at least halfway, so that we're ready to go come any event that happens as early as October, really. Are there any questions? I guess lastly is that we would seek reimbursement at town meeting. So just want to give you this update, but just as last week, we're probably over $400,000. So we'll be finalizing these numbers soon and requesting this reimbursement or this basically how to rectifying this account.
That's more than we have in our reserve fund, so we'll go to town meeting and ask for a transfer from the stabilization fund, which is why we have a stabilization, one of the reasons we have it. And as Christine noted, there will be an effort to get federal reimbursement or assistance for disaster from that last blizzard. The problem is, in our case, is the federal government does it by county. And so a lot of the counties on the South Shore near the Cape will get coverage because of the expense and duration and volume. We're in Middlesex County, and our county got 10, 12 inches of snowfall. So and we also didn't have any significant property damage or other damage. So I would say it's highly unlikely that we will qualify. So what you'll see is different counties in the state will get reimbursement and other areas won't. And we know that it's just how the federal government operates by a county-based system.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, Christine, the question I have been asked multiple times recently is over the past couple of years, obviously we haven't had the intense winters we did this year. Are we able to bank that at all?
That goes into the stabilization fund.
So that
closes
all
out,
right.
and then whatever's left over gets swept into the stabilization fund.
Okay, great, thank you,
But no,
Paul.
we don't have a dedicated account for snow and ice deficit. It just goes to our $17
Well,
million
that's the
stabilization
question
fund.
I was getting repeatedly.
Because this is the first time in, like I said, 5 years since we've had an overrun.
Right.
10 years.
10
closer
years,
to
yeah.
10,
10 for the big,
Yeah.
for the big ones, yeah.
So do you compensate
No, what we
in
do
next
is
year's budget for
when we
the
budget,
overruns this year?
we do a 5-year rolling average.
Okay.
And that's, so the budget's been level because, again, we haven't gone over in quite some time. So even this upcoming budget will still be 1.15 million because, again, you budget for an average winter. And that's what we do, it's a 5-year average, so that's how it works.
Yeah, we'll monitor it. So if
going
next year
forward.
we
So
go
if it becomes
over,
a trend,
then we should probably look, maybe we'll look at it, but we do look at that 5-year rolling average. And so we're still below the 1.15 when you look at the 5-year history.
Aaron?
Yeah, so, and thank you, Christine, this is a great report. I mean, the numbers kind of stink, the overage, but looking at the overtime, we really can't control because you need the time to clear, but for things like the salt, and I'm assuming that maybe the brine's included in that, or,
Yeah, so for brining, so we purchase, most of our salt we purchase is salt, and then we purchase solar salt when we make the brine. For us to make brine, I mean, we're making it, I think it's like 3 cents a gallon, so it's
Okay,
really,
so
it's
it's
really, I mean, most of
noise.
this salt number you're seeing is the salt we're applying to the roadway. For us to make brine, we're probably maybe like $10,000.
not a lot.
It's just, so brine is a great tool when it's the right conditions.
Right.
So we had a very cold winter, so there were a handful of times, or a couple times, at least a few times, where we did not brine because it was below 21 degrees. And if you don't want to apply brine when it's 21 degrees or 15 degrees of additives. We did do a trial additive, which was okay, but even then it was we actually did not do it one time because it was below 15 degrees. So you don't want to be applying brine in that cold. And then if the event starts as a rain event, more of a wet mixture, you're wasting that effort. And lastly, I guess if the roads are wet, sometimes you were just coming from one storm and rolling into the next one. So if the roads are wet, you cannot brine. So we only brine 3 times. And I would say going back since we've implemented brining, which now we can do town-wide, we're only doing it a handful of times. It's a great tool, but it's a tool.
But it's the
One
cost of that's embedded into the salt.
Yes,
And
yes.
has salt been steadily going up?
Yeah, so
over
I
the
want to
couple
say
years?
before COVID, it was around $40. Yeah, so it's almost doubled since, I would say almost doubled in the past 5 years. I don't have so I think last year was the high 60s. It goes up, I could check the percentages, but it's steadily increased. And I remember 5 years ago, I want to say it was like $42 or $43 a ton. So that's a significant increase. And to, I guess, put it in comparison, it costs more for us to purchase salt than it does for us to purchase asphalt.
Yeah, you said that earlier.
Not to
I'm just-
apply it necessarily,
Yeah,
but to
I'm
for
just
the
wondering
actual
if we're
material.
expecting it to go up, right? And you mentioned that you want to, at the end of the season, have the shed half full. Does it make sense to fill it anticipating?
It
or
probably
does it not
would
move
with
the needle?
consumer. I mean, we don't know what it would be, so it's hard to. It's probably follow. It's
It's not going to go down, though.
no.
I think part of it, quite honestly, is supply and demand. And I will say that I was in the South recently watching train after train heading north, loaded, with all the cars loaded with salt. And, for that reason alone, when you think about the whole East Coast needed salt this year, supply and demand is part of the reason it's so expensive.
Exactly, more so than in previous, right? There were, I think there was once, it was the July 25th storm where Nashville was looking for salt, and I don't know how many plowing pieces of equipment they have across the state, so that supply and demand definitely drives it. We were fortunate and we maintained an inventory. We got low a couple times, but we always try to fill it. I know there were some communities that were saying that we're low on salt, we're only going to salt hills or mains, and so we did not have to go to that effort. We maintained our inventory, but there were times where we were low and we were really asking for that, that supply. So we'll fill the shed at least half, maybe 3/4, maybe not full. Sometimes we'll fill it so it's overflowing, but we'll
Yeah,
put enough to start.
I definitely don't want to
The
suggest.
problem, Deb, it's a fixed price contract for the whole season.
Oh,
So
okay.
we're bidding
Yeah.
this in a collaborative in the fall to go through March. And the problem they're having right now is if you're the salt supplier, well, you're making a call in February, what do I do? Because if it doesn't get wintry, then you're sitting on that salt all summer in the yard in Chelsea watching it. And so that's why you had conditions where the supplies were minimal because they didn't order the boat to come in with the salt because they didn't think that they were gonna need it. So
Yeah,
that's the challenge of that industry.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about it. I mean, there's no question that Christine's an excellent steward of the
Yeah.
funds that the DPW gets, so I wasn't questioning that, but
No, but the idea
definitely
is
gonna
it
ask
should
for
be,
ways
should
for
we
us to
fill it?
save if we can, in the coming years, so.
At least halfway, because I would hate to
Yeah.
start if we had a storm in October and say, oh, well, we don't have salt, so I want to at least make sure we have half
And-
the
Yeah,
shed.
and you wanna be consistent because otherwise you're not comparing valid winters.
Right.
You have a winter where you filled the shed, whereas one you started full.
Right.
And people say, well, wait a minute, these numbers, this doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense.
Oh, I have no complaints about the clearing this year, so I appreciate it.
I will say kudos to you and the team, and I know a lot of it is just good decision-making when, okay, when we're gonna get an inch and we get 4 inches, and then it's, all right, we're right on that cusp.
Yep.
But I never felt unsafe on the roads at all this winter, so.
And I
kudos
think that's
to you.
acknowledged because we've not received a handful of complaints about the road conditions. Now, you always get complaints on my mailbox, my fence post, but in terms of people traveling through town, like I said, it's been really, you guys have done a fantastic job.
Thank
I think
you.
it's been recognized.
So if I could just ask one question about the salt pile that you have for residents. And now, is it still just the one over on Graniteville?
Yes, so we still have that. We will be taking it down at some point, not yet. We'll wait for the snow to melt. And then we did put a covered structure over that too, and that we have to take that down. We actually are looking at maybe relocating it just nearby, but I guess we'll finalize that location and have that information brought to residents for the next season. Just because I think I found a location where we could leave it and not have to disassemble it and take it down every season, because that is a parking lot for the for the field use. So that is like a sand salt mixture, and that is available to the residents, and we have filled that throughout the winter, and we'll continue that. That is very helpful for the residents if they need access to salt and sand.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Thank you on that.
All
I
right.
guess our next discussion is our intent to lay out Proctor Road as a public way, which surprised me when I saw
Yes,
that.
so this is, so we had a few of these. I know I was before the board. I want to say it was a year, Parkhurst was the last road. So we've had some roads that are really arterial roadways in town that we've always treated as accepted roadways. We plow it, we maintained it, we've repaired it. And so when we went through our inventory, just in terms of our Chapter 90 reimbursement, because Chapter 90 is really, it shows you what, if it's accepted, then you're able to have that, funds. Basically, the more mileage you have, the more funds you could potentially be reimbursed from the state through Chapter 90. So we always want to try to maximize that, but there's also a level effort to make sure, to bring us straight into that accepted category. And Proctor Road was a surprise. It's 1.51 miles, an arterial roadway. I did confirm with our town engineer that this is the last arterial roadway that we would be proposing to accept. So everything else should be accepted. Just to put it in perspective is that, so there are a number of streets in town. A lot of them are more smaller local roads, but those are all like, they're local roads, like less than a half a mile, even less than about 0.25 miles. But this is 1.51 miles. And so the request is that this be accepted as a town road. It is between Acton Road and to the town line with Carlisle, the town of Carlisle. This right here is a plan. It is really finalized, except they just have to there's some notes here. They just have to stamp it and put in the northings and eastings, which everything is there. It's just the labeling, which we'll be receiving. I believe it's this week or next week. I do have all the plans here, if there's any questions. Like I said, this is the intent. The plans do have to be stamped and just have to have the labels added. And also, Proctor Road is on the list for this year's paving, so it just pairs well. And that's how it came up. We're like, well, we want to pave Proctor. Oh, let's see if we can also get it accepted too.
So how the process works is
I was gonna say, what happens
You
next?
vote your intent to lay out, and there's a motion they put in your packet, to lay out Proctor Road as a public way. We then transmit a message to the planning board. They then make a recommendation, and then it comes back to you for a vote on acceptance, and then it goes to town meeting for the final vote of approval. And then once then we send it to Mass Dot, and then it's state approved.
So I have a question. Are there any takings that will be required along the road in order to make it an accepted road from any of the residents there now?
There's no takings. I will say we are looking at one area right now that the right of way, so this is something the taking can continue. The existing layout can continue. The roadway does in one area near Park Road, and it's actually technically on Park Road. It's not on where the address is Park Road. I can feel what street it is. There's the roadway falls outside the limits. So that was something that I informed Paul we just came across as we were looking at the final plans. And so we are looking, and so it does not affect the Proctor Road acceptance, but it will affect the construction. So potentially, here's right here, so you can see.
Let me see if I can blow it up.
Show you. So this is Park Road right the roadway, edge of pavement right here, the roadway does go through someone's property. So we are looking here. So we have to potentially realign the road when we do the construction. We're looking at possibly realigning Proctor Road as we do the construction, or do we go through with a taking? But that would be done at fall town meeting, because we have to go through the design. As far as just moving the roadway, that would make it a sharper bend. We have to look to see, is also this ledge on the property. It would move it from, basically it would shift the road up to 20 feet in one area. So we do need to look at that. So, we don't know why the road was installed outside of the right of way. There is, potentially ledge, but you could always remove ledge in a roadway. So it's something that we are looking at, but I don't want to confuse it with, it shouldn't accept the taking of Proctor Road as it's laid out. It might impact construction, but that would be done at fall town meeting. And there's a section of Proctor Road that will probably not pave this year and pave next spring.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions on the,
To your point, Pat, I've grown up in that neighborhood. I'm shocked that we're at this point right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it was a complete surprise that, but this is the last major,
This is the last major road. It was Parkhurst. I'm trying to think there was another, there was one other street too. I can't remember, I'm drawing a blank, but this is the last arterial roadway that we'll be accepting in town. At least that is an existing street, current street.
all right. If there's no other questions, we'd entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that this board vote its intention to lay out Proctor Road as a public way for the parcel of land shown as Proctor Road on a draft plan entitled, Plan of Road in Middlesex County prepared for the town of Chelmsford, Proctor Road in the town of Chelmsford, Massachusetts, dated February 20th, 2026, prepared by Greenham Pedersen Incorporated, and forward the proposed layout as shown on the plan to the planning board for its comments and recommendations pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 811.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, we're done. And the next item that we're going to discuss is the 2026 construction season for road and sidewalk improvements.
So with the nicer weather, I do provide this update every February, March. And so some of these slides are similar in the previous years, and I'll just go through it, provide a brief overview of our pavement management system overview, so we have 190 miles of town-accepted roads, like I said, with Proctor, soon to be 191.5. And we do track all of our roadways through a pavement management database, and we do update it annually. And that is used to see how we can, what type of measure we implement, construction measure, in maintaining our roadway system. The roadway, in this database, there's a natural deterioration to each roadway by 2% each year. Also, it classifies if it's an arterial road, a local road, because depending on the amount of vehicles on the road, there's a different benefit factor. So this database generates a list each year if this is what roads, your highest benefit value to pave. We look at that annually, but it's not our only factor when deciding on what roads to pave. We look at potentially proximity to other streets. So sometimes we'll catch another street in the area if it makes sense. There might be utility work or development work in the area that has to occur before we do this, before we restore the roadway. And so sometimes that will also impact when we pave a road. And it has happened, like an example, I think it was Kensington, we just pushed it one season because we knew we had to do the pump station work. So we do send notice to all utility companies to say if there's, they're doing gas, it'd be great if they do the gas first, and then we would go in after. So we publish this list annually, and it will soon be available on our DPW website. And the roadway, each road is given a rating, 0 to 100. 100 is being that perfectly paved road that was just installed, and 0 being completely gravel, rutted, potholes. And And so we look at, so really in each category of ratings can determine when we rehabilitate a road and to what level. And so the goal is to try to, maximize how much, we only have so much money to spend. And so we want to try to catch some of the roads before they fall into a lower category. So, for example, preventative maintenance, that's fair condition, crack sealing. We've done micro sealing. If we can catch a road before it falls into that previous level, we can extend the life of it, and we can repair that road for less money as it's supposed to fall into a more intensive rehabilitation type. And then structural improvements, when you have roadways that fall within 61 to 72, that's when you get into the pavement itself has deteriorated. That's where we're about 2 inches off the pavement. And again, we try to catch those roadways before they fall into the bottom category, which is 0 to 60. And that's where we have to not only rehabilitate the 2 inches of asphalt or the asphalt layer, but also the structural subbase. So not only has the pavement failed, but the gravel subbase below has also failed. And so like I said, we try to maximize what we can mill and overlay, but also we have to spend our money to do base rehabilitation or the pavement reclamation. So we annually put some money aside for pavement reclamation, some money aside for the mill and overlay, and then also try to do something, whether it be crack sealing or preventative maintenance is the crack sealing or the micro sealing. And so going back the past few years, because we've not only spent the Chapter 90 money and the capital money, but we've been very fortunate to have free cash go towards our paving program. And so we're spending about $3 million a year, going back the past few years. And by spending that money, we're increasing our PCI rating. And it's interesting because when we went back to our pavement management system creation of that database, they estimated how much money you have to spend annually, and I believe it was like $1.5 million just to maintain your PCI index. And then if you spend more, you're going to increase it. And it is nice to see that our average PCI rating of our roadways is increasing. So going back to the blue box here, it's 76.9, and now as of this year, we have an average rating of 80.3. This is just a summary of our roads that we paved this past year. We had spent $3.1 million that was combined from capital, Chapter 90, and previous free cash. Each treatment is shown here. So like I said, there's micro sealing, there's mill and overlay, there's pavement reclamation. And here's just some examples just showing the before and after. One is on Livery Road. That was a reclamation, and then also a Research Place, that was a reclamation. And a total 8.5 miles paved. And so now looking at this year, we also fortunate enough to have free cash, Chapter 90, capital, and so we're targeting $3.6 million for 9.9 miles. This is a listing of the streets you see here. I do want to note, so we will be publishing this on our DPW website, but also with we still are coming out of the winter, so there are some cases where we'll go out, we look at these streets, and sometimes a road will fall into a lower category. It doesn't happen that often, but sometimes we say, oh, we thought we could mill and overlay this, but we actually have to push it to a reclamation. So we'll, it's subject to change. We always say subject to change because sometimes it might change as we are finalizing that. This, as of a couple weeks ago, we believe this is accurate, and this is what's going up to bid. But like I said, it's always, there's a chance that sometimes we pull a street or move it in a different treatment before the spring. In terms of a timeline, we are preparing these bids right now. I know we'll have some bids before you at the next meeting for more of our purchase of asphalt. I call them more of the highway-related bid items, but these projects, the reclamation and the mill and overlay, those will be going out in March, and we'll award either end of March or early April.
Before we move on to sidewalks, I have a question for my own personal curiosity. But I know on some of the major roads when we do paving, we initiate a moratorium to keep contractors or somebody maybe upgrading their property or building a home or something like that, where we put a 5-year, typically a 5-year moratorium, I think, to keep contractors and people from coming in and disturbing the brand-new road that we just put down. Does that apply, if we do like a full reclamation, does that apply to every street, or is it just more main roads, or is it just decision-making along the way?
It's really all streets, so.
It is all streets,
Yeah, it is
okay.
all streets, unless, I guess, if it's an emergency, then then that emergency trumps our moratorium. We have had a couple cases where, National Grid has declared emergency and we verified. So we did say we have to confirm that it is a true emergency, and not for development. So yes, it is for all. If for some reason there's a waiver of that moratorium, we do have pretty strict requirements that they complete restoration curb to curb. But that moratorium is in place, so you're right, we can potentially say no to the project. There has been some cases where we've said no, but then the project's already been approved, and so we said, well, then you have to do curb-to-curb restoration for, X amount of feet or your frontage. So that has happened, but it's a waiver. They have to ask. It's never guaranteed. It's just something that, part of our review process.
So
yes,
it's not a free-for-all that anybody can just go in and
No.
dig in the street or upset. It would take more like a water main break or
A
something
lot
like
of
that.
cases are water main breaks have occurred too. So that's where, unfortunately, if that happens, if it's any type of emergency, then they have to be able to get into the roadway. But they do have to restore it. So if it is a water main break, then it has to be restored curb to curb.
Thank you.
Just moving on to the sidewalk sidewalk update. And so going back to 2023, similar to our pavement management database, we created a sidewalk master plan database, inventorying all of our sidewalks and all of our pedestrian ramps in terms of how much we had, but also the condition of each one of that. And it's a very robust system that we have where it gets down to every curb ramp and what material type it is, the slopes. It also has, point defects along. Sometimes you have a whole sidewalk section in a poor condition, but sometimes you might just have point defects along the way. So we use this annually when planning our sidewalk master plan. Next slide, please. And just so since the creation of this master plan database, we have added 1 mile of new sidewalk. So we were at 46.5 miles, now we're at 47.5. And this is a distribution of how each sidewalk breaks down. So we have more new so it just shows now we have 6.29 miles of sidewalk, whereas originally in 2023 we had 4.4. We still do have a backlog of $22 million in repairs and replacements to the existing sidewalk infrastructure. And we have $13 million in new sidewalks. So as part of that master plan, we identified corridors that would be good to connect, really help connect the existing infrastructure, and looking at schools or proximity to other businesses or to other points of interest. And so we do have that plan, and we have been implementing that. Example, Old Westford Road, we just installed sidewalk on Turnpike, and I'll be talking about, we're doing Parkerville. So we're trying to chip away at that addition of new sidewalks.
And Main Street will be probably the next one.
Main Street will also be there, yes. And so also just to highlight that the sidewalk plan isn't just the sidewalks themselves, but these curb ramps that are at throughout the entire town. So we have 756 curb ramps. I believe the number was around 500 when we first started. So we're targeting 25 to 40 annually as part of our paving program. So when we go through our paving program, we also identify these curb ramps that have to be upgraded. They have to be ADA compliant. They have to be in, as you've seen on the left, that's in really poor condition, not the right materials. So in the picture on the right is one that is in compliance. So we do target that as part of our paving program, and we do have a $1.9 million backlog of that just to get through the whole network. So as far as completed sidewalks for this year, we had just over 1,000 feet on Burton Lane. This was existing sidewalk replaced. This was in conjunction with a roadway paving program. 255 linear feet on Cushing Place. That was new sidewalk, also in conjunction with our roadway program. We had, through a Complete Streets grant, 1,100 linear feet on Turnpike Road, pictured here. And then also just miscellaneous curb ramps, again, as part of that paving plan. So in total for this past year, 0.45 miles replaced or added and $525,000 spent. Now, looking at this year, this number is a little lower, and we have a very large need for capital improvements. And so when we did put together the capital improvement plan, one item that was not moved, that did not move forward this year, was sidewalks. And so usually it's historically been about $350,000 that has gone towards sidewalks. That is not moving, that for this year, that was not part of that recommendation in the capital planning process or in the final recommendations. But it is still important to replace some curb ramps. And so when we do the streets with the paving, I want to make sure we are addressing those those pedestrian ramps. So we are still targeting 25 locations as part of project. We'll use Chapter 90 funding. We are still proposing, we still have a little bit work left on Turnpike Road between Billerica Road and Bernard Lane, 360 linear feet as part of the Complete Streets grant that will be completed this spring. We also, this is going back just a couple years ago, we have a federal grant and we are advancing that, the 1,500 linear feet on Parkerville. With the federal grant, there's a process, you have to show that it's not environmentally impactful, so we're going through that design. It's been designed, but we're going through that process right now. I do anticipate that will also go to bid this year and be constructed. So in total, 0.35 miles proposed, 450,000 estimated construction. But two of these are grant funded, so that's why we're able to afford it and move forward with it. And then, so separate from the paving program and what I call our sidewalk program, we have some other larger projects that we are working on and really, I guess, in the design phase. And the first one is the Main Street reconstruction design. I just want to provide an update on this. I did recently provide this update to the Vinyl Square group. This is the Main Street reconstruction design project. We put this as a separate project from the roadway and sidewalk program because it's such a large project. You know, we do about $3 million a year across the town, but this itself is estimated to be $1.5 million. Currently, we have design is funded. GBI Consultant is our designer, $195,000. They have completed the assessment or the concept report that is just about to be uploaded probably within the next week or so on our DPW website. And in that, it provides the full assessment and also some recommendations. In that recommendation, so we estimate $1.5 million of construction. And just given that size, we're looking at a phased approach. And so can we do it in segments? And so if I break it into 3 pieces, we could probably tackle it over hopefully a 3-year period. Just to go over some of the project goals, so these are above and beyond our roadway paving program because, and I'll get into it in the next couple of slides, this is a complete streets approach. So adding sidewalk where there's not existing sidewalk, also looking to where we can provide some traffic calming. We have some speed issues on Main Street. We've had accidents, and going back more than 5 years ago, there's been fatalities, unfortunately. So really, we want to provide improved access to all users. And when I say all users, including pedestrians, bicyclists. The roadway restoration is also important. I know there's parts of Main Street that are deteriorating. Looking at creating a continuous sidewalk, implementing traffic calming along the corridor to help address some of those issues, with speed issues, and so pedestrians can feel safe, and improve crossing at high pedestrian locations. We do have some locations where we have to add crosswalks. This is just a existing aerial of Main Street so the limits are between School Street and Groton Road, and when we divide the 3 projects, they don't necessarily have to be from School Street to Groton Road or vice versa. Really, we could start at either end, and that is still to be decided. The travel lanes right now are 11.5 and between 11.5 and 12.5 feet wide. So the wider travel lanes make you look like this is more of a highway, so go faster. And that's so in the assessment report, the average speed is closer to 39 miles an hour and is posted at 30 miles an hour. Also, just a couple other items is the pavement width is 36 to 45 feet wide. So there's some areas where we have 9 feet shoulder. So we can implement this traffic calming opportunities by adding the sidewalks and kind of bringing in the roadway, or some people call it a roadway diet. Next slide, please. Some of the existing data from the assessment shows where we had crashes. We had speed-related crashes. We've had pedestrian-related crashes. This is over the past 5 years. And so it's 17 total collisions. What is not shown on here, I know there's fatalities, 2018, I believe the other one was in 2014. Those were speed related. But we typically, when we look at an assessment, look back at the past 5 years. This is to show the sidewalk infrastructure. So what is shown in red is showing the gaps of the sidewalk. So our goal is to create a continuous connection from School Street to Groton Road in some means. And so as you can see, we have some sidewalk around School Street, we have some sidewalk around Burton Lane, and then we lack it around the Groton Road. So we want to provide that connectivity along Main Street.
Christine, you said that you wanted to have sidewalk continuous only on one side, though, but it looks like maybe you're proposing on both sides?
No, so the red is showing there's no sidewalk on both sides.
Okay.
And so I will get into that. So
Okay.
also, it's a good point, I'll bring it up now, is what type of project is this? So there's the Mass DOT project where this could be easily a several $1 million project where you're doing bike lanes on both, raised bike lanes or bike lanes on both sides and sidewalks on both sides. Our goal is to be able to implement this project, provide some traffic calming opportunities, but also try to be aware of the existing right-of-way limits. So even though our right-of-way might extend beyond what's currently there, if we start to say, okay, we have to add bike lanes on both sides of the street and we have to add sidewalk on both sides of the street, we're going to have a much different project. Much more expensive, a lot more right-of-way impacts. We're talking, maybe moving driveways, mailboxes, retaining walls. So this goal is to create sidewalk on one side of the street. And that is something that, I guess it could be continuous on one side. There also potentially could be a crossing. And that's something that we're still working through right now to determine. Okay. So it is, maybe there's a section where there's a sidewalk on two sides of the street, because there is some existing sidewalk. So that's something, in the end, to add sidewalk if you have on two sides of the street, now you're probably talking an extra at least $500,000. And it's just, we're trying to get this project completed with having one sidewalk would we still be able to achieve a lot of our original goals.
So you stripe for crosswalks, et cetera, for, if you have a street on one side and a sidewalk on the other, and we're likely to see more crosswalks.
Yeah, so I do have that in here, because you'll see, because I think that's the thing, is there's not, when we look at the next couple of slides, is there's certain points of interest where people would want to cross. And so if we can target those areas, then we probably don't need sidewalk on both sides of the street, and we can complete this project in a more efficient way with our town funds. So just this next map is using the Strava data. People use this for where bicyclists or where people walk. It shows that there's a strong neighborhood connection between the north or east and west side of Main Street over by the Lovett Lane and Burton Lane area. So that's an identified pedestrian area. Also over at Meadowbrook, there's some moderate crossing there, and then a large area over by Lynn Ave and Twist Road, and probably to and from the cemetery, also heading towards the Freeman Lake as well, potentially. So, and then the two intersections too. So that's where we've seen. So if we can make connections at those points, then I think we can accomplish our goals, and while also having just one sidewalk on one side. So this is the consultant's first take at it. This is not what we're going to install. This is just, really a discussion piece, because the next step is to have a public input meeting with the abutters and with the Vinyl Square group, but just to kind of get feedback. How do they envision, what do they want? That feedback will be rolled into this design, and then we'll have more of a final design. And like I said, this doesn't mean we're starting here. It could be at the other side as well, but this is just to go over. We'll start at the School Street end just to show you. So the School Street, what's proposed is teeing up the intersection. It's hard to see, but there's a circle there. That's that roundabout of some sort. That's proposed to be removed. It's not really a well-functioning roundabout. Doesn't have the adequate deflection. And I know there was a pedestrian accident involved here. So the goal here is to shorten that crossing distance at School Street, tee up that intersection. The memorial at that roundabout could be relocated, so it shows that. Also, there's other traffic calming measures we can take or implement along Main Street. One item here is it says 5-foot splitter island, so that's just helping channel traffic. So that's one way we could do it, and that's proposed right here. There's other ways. There's like chicanes. There's the installation of sidewalk narrows that as well, but that is proposed right here. It does retain 3 parking spaces. In general, the proposed cross-section, like I said, right now we're at 11.5 to 12.5 of roadway width. We want to be, and the shoulder varies from 2 feet to 9 feet. So to accommodate bicyclists without installing bike lanes, looking at having at least maintain a 3-foot shoulder. And then having 11-foot travel lanes, potentially 10.5 in some areas, but 11-foot travel lanes, so that when you're driving down the road, if it's narrower, it's a reminder that you should be going slower, and then added with the sidewalk on one side of the street. And so just continuing down to Burton Lane, this Burton Lane did show a point of connection, so we propose a crosswalk there. It could be raised, potentially, that's something that we just consider. Also, having the active driver feedback signs at each approach, or the rapid flashing beacons. So there's measures we still have to, it doesn't mean we're just putting a crosswalk and there's no other measures, but this to show that we want to have a crossing here at Burton Lane. On the, what you see on the top side, the red there, that is existing sidewalk. So we show connecting to existing sidewalk. This is where we have to decide, do we move the sidewalk to the north side of the street for this section or the south side? So that's part of the feedback we will want from the community. Ultimately, we would like it on one side and not both sides, because that just adds project costs. And it could be on either side. It's just on the north side is not compliant, and it's something that we want to address. So we either would be removing it and putting it to the south, or we'd be restoring it and keeping it on the north. Or I say north, sorry, that's the west. Continuing down towards Groton Road, this does not mean here, it just shows sidewalk on Main Street. We do show a crossing at Burton. Let's see, there's one area, I'm trying to think where we show it. There's a crossing shown at Meadowbrook. So at Meadowbrook, it shows a crossing as well. Lynn Ave here. This is the additional crosswalk that we show. Sorry, next slide. So on here, Lynn Ave, we show a raised crosswalk here. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be raised. There's various measures we can do, and that's part of the feedback we want to have from the community, also from public safety. There's that's proposed here. Also potentially looking at the additional feedback signs or rapid flashing beacons. And this is that connectivity from the west to the east, and the cemetery is here on the east. And then connecting to Groton Road, what is shown on Groton Road is to tee up that intersection with Main Street. That is a very wide opening, and what is shown is a splitter island at the intersection with Main Street, potentially a grass area right there. We do have to, I guess, look at this intersection just to make sure it doesn't have any impacts to there might be a minor impact to one of the adjacent properties. So seeing how we can best, we want to have that teed up intersection, but also minimizing impacts to abutters. So something to look at. I know when we originally were looking at this, the thought was, could this be a roundabout? A roundabout does not really fit well here. So this is what we are proposing right now. And it does, by teeing it up, it just improves the visibility as people turn left or to right onto Groton, or turning from Groton onto Main. So in terms of the phasing, I said it could be done in any order, but School Street to Loisel Lane to the crossing with 495 Mass DOT, or Route 3. The Route 3 crossing to Groton Road would be that third phase. Each one's estimated about $500,000. Where we are right now, so we have the design in place. So we will hold a public input session. I'm trying to finalize that date. Hopefully this week we would publish it. It would be, I believe, the first or second week in April. We'll send out notifications to the abutters, invite them. I would like to have it, a plan right now is to have it at the senior center. But all that information will be coming out soon. And that will be to give them, the community, an update and also receive feedback of what people really, I guess, envision along the street. Once we have that information, we will advance the design. And then the next phase is, how do we fund this? And I know this was a contender for the recent capital improvement plan, and it just was not selected just because there's so many projects that we need to do. But we'll resubmit this for next year. I am checking to see if it would be okay for complete streets. I know we can't fund design for complete streets, but maybe construction. So I guess we're going to try to find an opportunity to fund at least that initial phase. And then just to go over a few other projects. The Chelmsford Street 110 design. So there's really two sections of that. The Mass DOT is advancing the design between Alpine Lane and Golden Cove Road. That still is on the tip for 2028 construction, I believe.
It's still on 28, Pat, or is it 29 now?
I know it's not
It might,
28. I know
no,
it's not
it
28.
might have, I think they might have just moved it. When I did check it, it said 2000, maybe they just moved
The
it. 'Cause
old connector ending there at the
I think it was,
roundabout. got
I think
Gorham
it
Street
actually
got
was
pushed out.
27, and then
It
they
actually was 26
and then
at
it-
one point.
and then they were gonna move it to 28, but 28's already taken, the money's already taken.
So maybe it's the 9.
29.
When I did check this, it did say 28, because I went in and checked, so the website was still publishing 28, but I know that's still moving a little bit. And then the town owns between Central Square and Alpine Lane. That did start as a project that would potentially tip. It is a large cost to advance the tip because we have to fund the design all the way to 100%. And the design for a tip project is a lot different for the design of a town project, different standards. So we have that watershed analysis that we're doing. So we'll complete that watershed analysis. And then I guess we're kind of on hold right now to say, what do we want to do? Do we want to design it in-house and install it in pieces? I also know, because if we go tip funding, there'll be, there's very different parking impacts because you're obligated to put bike lanes, at least on one side of the street. We'd have to apply for a waiver because we have the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. So I guess the update is we're advancing the watershed kind of on hold, and there has been some community sessions to receive that feedback.
And that part between Alpine Lane and Golden Cove Road, that, Pat knows, she was on the board at the time, that project was initiated by Mass Department of Transportation in 2013 to signalize the off-ramps from the highway. And here we are, we're talking 2029. So we've shared this information with the current leadership at NIMCOG and everything else, saying, what's going on here with the state? The state initiated the project. It wasn't like our idea, as Pat knows, because at the time, they also initiated the one on North Road, which has been completed. And the one on North Road was supposed to be done a year after the one on Chelmsford Street. Anyway.
You want to add more lights down there?
Yeah.
It actually proposes
No.
roundabouts.
It was supposed to be a roundabout, and the current plan is a roundabout.
I love rotaries.
Two
Two
roundabouts. So you won't have traffic signals to get on and off the highway. You'll be doing the pirouettes around the
To do a
roundabout.
figure 8, yeah.
So
I grew up with the rotaries, so I like them.
anyway, I'm sorry, but that just shows our frustration with
Anybody
with
constructs
MassDOT.
rotaries these days.
That's the flavor of the month now with
Oh,
MassDOT
yeah.
is roundabouts.
It seems that way.
So we'll keep everyone updated on that. It's watershed is the next step for us. And then the Vinyl Square reconstruction design, we have completed the 25% design, but we do need to hold that public design hearing. So that also will be scheduled soon. I'm looking at dates in, I think, mid-May, early May. I think it's the second week in May. That information will be coming out soon. Mass DOT hosts it. I know sometimes they have the virtual. I like to have it in person. So again, the senior center. We also have to complete utility tracing and investigation, so that is something that we're just beginning, but we want to probably do an initial one, advance the design, and then maybe go back only if we have to try to save costs. That is something that we have to fund, and that was added by Mass DOT. And the construction right now for that is 2028 construction. We do have to fund 100% design. But are working with NIMCOG where apply for, basically with federal funding, we pay 20% of it, and then NIMCOG through their federal funding would be able to pay for the remaining percentage. We do have to go for RFP for design, so we are working on that, and we would select that final designer by August of this year. And then the Route 3A between Richardson Road and Technology Drive. This was another project that first came about because Richardson Road we wanted a signal there. And we did apply through a bottleneck grant to install a signal, and we were denied because the state said this is all state right-of-way, and it was not eligible. And so Richardson Road is town right-of-way, but Route 3A is state right-of-way. So at that point, we said, well, let's maybe look towards the tip, and we went and we started some initial analysis through what they call ICE, or intersection control analysis, that phase 1. We did have a public meeting, and I think with that, we paused because it's like, okay, what's the next steps? We did confirm with the state that they want us to fund 100% design. And is there right of way? So it's just, we have a lot of projects. We have Main Street, we have Vinyl Square, we have Chelmsford Street. So on my list, it's important, but it's also just on the bottom of our current list, just because it's state right of way. So we are looking again to NIMCOG and just seeing if there's a way to advance this project, but it currently just is on hold until we understand that funding ability moving forward in the near future.
I think you just answered one of my questions. I was going to ask you, for instance, Main Street tying into Massachusetts State Highway Route 40, do we have to have, when we tie in and we reconfigure on our side, the Main Street side, do we need state approval for tying into their roadway, for instance, or what's the level of effort that we need to go through to be able to, change an intersection like that, and even though we're just tying into their system and not maybe disturbing it too much?
Well, Route 40 we own, so it is a state route, but we own. But an example of I guess Vinyl Square is not really a great example because it is on this tip, but if we were tying into state layout or state right of way, we would need their permission to be able. They have to do access or a permit to do their work. So I imagine it would go through that approval process. Just as an example, I know we're installing a clock in Vinyl Square, and it took us several months just to get a permit to trench across the sidewalk, and they wanted every plan imaginable to trench across. So I imagine it would be partially through that process as well, if we were connecting into their right of way, but. We're really limited in if we were connecting to a right-of-way, we're really limited. I guess I can't think of an example, because Richardson Road would be that example, but we can't install the signal at the intersection because it's their right-of-way.
Right. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Christine, I don't want to get too specific on you because I know the enormity of what you're dealing with right now. But I have gotten some concerns from my Westland neighbors, specifically on Myland and Linwood. And when I was up there about a year ago, there were some exposed manhole covers. Does that take precedence as far as paving?
Well, with the exposed manhole covers, we probably could go and make adjustments if we had to. So we would just look at those. As far, in terms of like the pavements breaking up around it, or is the?
Well, there was really, they had redone the road.
Yeah.
I think they had partially pulled up some of the base, and that's why the manhole covers are so high. But then they never quite came back and did final paving.
We can look at those, and that just might be, I hate to break it, but if we had to make an adjustment, we can make an adjustment at that. That'd be separate from the paving program?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it, because I know I would
we'll
get chastised by my neighbors.
Yeah, we'll look at it.
That's okay.
And sometimes I know with like the winter, with freeze thaw, sometimes things move. So sometimes things move and then they just settle back down in the spring. So that could be the case, but we'll look at it.
Well, I was up there about a year ago, and I specifically took a ride up,
If it
so I
was
knew
a
what I was
year,
talking
then, yeah.
about, so,
We'll look at it.
okay, great. My road's just been paved. I'm happy as a clam.
Good.
Well, when you're talking about that end at Main Street, kind of like in front of the Triangle store, going to more of a 90-degree,
Yeah.
which my parents live up in that area. I know every time I try to merge on there, I'm stopping and turning. I tee it myself. I literally turn my car at a 90, because it's hard to see, because it's kind of that little pitch there,
It's a very wide intersection that does
and
not
it's,
need to be
just
that wide.
fast road too, so.
Any other questions or comments for Christine?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is policy discussion and updates. The first bullet is disposal of surplus property under $10,000 policy. I think we're a little bit out of order, but it's the third page in that. And Paul?
Yeah, I'll just touch upon this one, then Pat will handle the rest. We're again following up our audit report, following up, compliances with state laws and so forth. The state statute provides disposition of surplus property under Chapter 30B. So what we've done here, and Christine Bruce really is the author and did the work on this, is to just formally have on a document, hopefully accepted by the select board, that formally documents the disposal of property under $10,000 in value. And as you can see, the policy is laid out, basically explains that's the purpose, is to comply with the Chapter 30B, for this purpose. And basically the procedures for that would be, first you have to declare that it's surplus property, you have to evaluate the property, and then under the state standards, use sound business practices as a method of disposal. And in the event there were to be an advertisement, then you would be posted in the town's website or the local newspaper for 14 days. And then there's a provision that if because of something that's of low value, if we were to distribute it or disperse it to another government or a charitable organization for less than fair market value, then that's allowable as well. And then obviously any and all policies, including this one, would comply with the conflict of interest law, so that there's no issues in terms of, disposition of property to someone who has a financial interest stake in the property. So that's what we have for you this evening in accordance with the town's policies. This will be the first read, and if there's no concerns, we'll put it on the next meeting agenda for final approval.
Okay, so this would,
Yep.
The
this
final
one-
approval
Yeah, I'm
would
not looking for a
happen.
vote this evening, just looking for any feedback or comments, but again, this is pretty vanilla, generic. I mean, the procurement law has been in effect for decades. Again, it was just noted that we didn't have a formal written policy that's called for under the statute for disposal of property under $10,000.
perfect.
And this will go into our select board
This will go into the
policies.
select board policies, which is why it goes before you as a formal policy.
Okay. Questions or comments for Paul on this policy?
I'll answer them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the next bullet was contract bid review updates.
So, we had talked about making some adjustments to policies, so, the last two are the ones that I concentrated most on, but, when I was going through the policy book, I noticed some policies that we don't really follow or maybe are not necessary, and that's kind of where the contract bid, award one came from. Many years ago, there was a request by one member of the board to have Paul send all this information to us when an RFP was issued. It seemed like that really wasn't necessary, and nobody really, was that interested in it. Or if they were, they would contact Paul directly and get a copy of the bid, the bid request. So I just changed it around a little bit, just to say, when the contract is awarded, that we have this information on our agenda, and we get that anyway, so, again, it probably is not even necessary, but, just to keep the notification about board members can request an electronic copy if they want to, before the bids are received, when they are issued. And again, this is a suggested policy change, so this is the first read,
In the way it can be done now is that you can subscribe to bid notices. A board member can do it, and you'll get every bid that's out. And so it was kind of redundant, and I was basically sending stuff out to the board, and it was like I was never getting any feedback from it, because it's like, okay, thanks for telling us that, you're out bidding for bleachers. Yeah, okay. So, but again, as Pat noted, when we come in with the bid awards, this is the information that you get. We just want to memorialize it. Here's the solicitation, this is the number of bids we got, this is the proposed bid amount, this is our award, exactly. So it's what you're getting. So again, we're trying to massage the policies to what's effective for the town.
I think this is adequate. I start thinking about things like, are they DCAM certified, are they,
Right.
but a lot of that's all background work that's
Exactly.
done by somebody else
By
anyway.
an engineer, or, yeah.
So I think this is adequate, and, when we operate on such a tight budget and with less
Limited
people than
staff.
what we really need, I think this is appropriate, and, any other questions or comments?
I'm all for making the bid process simpler, without a doubt.
Yeah, and this aligns with, and
What we're getting, yeah.
we get today, so it
Correct,
makes sense.
exactly, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Clean
And
it
then
up.
the next one has to do with agenda procedures. A long time ago, we used to, I guess, there was the request to have agendas more streamlined, not streamlined, but more precise, I guess you could say, yeah. But, it does say in a narrative, in one of the paragraphs, that the sequence of the items on the agenda are determined by the chair and the town manager right at the very beginning. So then I was thinking, well, why then do we have this thing that says it has to go in this order? Because it really doesn't have to go in that order, and sometimes we do move them around based on expediency or who might be in the, at the meeting. So that was the reason for this. And then some of the things that we used to have, like press questions, we never even do anymore because we never see the press. So,
Again, seems sensible. I don't think we lose anything by that.
Right.
and,
I don't either, yeah.
Yeah, I could support that.
All right. And then, 11 is next, or, in mine, is it 11 or 12?
11, yeah,
Yeah,
the
okay.
open
open-
meeting posting and minutes
Right.
policies.
This one and the next one, I guess I kind of took a chainsaw to, I guess you could say, more than just a scalpel, because there were a lot of things in both of these two, 11 and 12, that are covered by Mass General Law or open meeting law, and I just really didn't see the need to repeat it in our policies if it's already in open meeting law or Mass General Law, because those can change. It's not often, but it does happen. I mean, for meeting postings, when I was first elected to the board, we had a different posting requirements. Some of them were pretty strict. We had a kiosk outside between here and the fire station where you had to put every agenda, so anybody could drive up whenever they wanted to. Town clerk had to go out there and change those agendas, multiple times a day to have them available 24/7. So now we don't have to do that. So that's just one example of when, those regulations may change. So I went through and kind of removed anything that I thought would be covered somewhere else, because the other thing that you risk is if there is a change made to open meeting law, Mass General Law, and you don't update your own policies, then which one applies? So, that was, and like I said, it was repetitive too. It seemed in some of the cases that we had something listed more than once. So, again, I don't know if anybody has any comments, concerns, things to add, or additional things to remove.
As you said, almost all of these things are dictated by
Yes, right.
Mass General Law.
Right, so it doesn't make any
And
sense.
sometimes they change, like before you could count Saturdays, now you can't count
Right,
Saturdays.
exactly.
for
That was another
posting.
one, yeah, the
That was another
48
one.
hours.
Okay,
yeah.
so now we have to
Right.
change our policy because they no longer count Saturdays.
Right, yeah, and who knows what's gonna change next? I mean,
Yeah, because this whole issue of hybrid meetings, open meeting, which they still haven't memorialized at this point.
right,
Oh, but it's true. We
Yeah.
all operate by that standard.
their
Like,
rules,
what does
yeah.
Mass General Law say?
Yep.
So,
we don't need to repeat it in our policies, I don't think.
I agree 100%. Any other?
No, I
questions?
agree as well. Like to Pat's point, if it changes now, we're gonna have to go back and change our policy.
Yep,
Yep.
So it's not conflicting. That makes sense.
Yep. No, the way with what you've stricken in and put in, it just dictates Mass General Law. That's how we operate.
right.
So, I'm good with that.
And then the 12, which is the onboarding and orientation. You know, I think it's good to have that, but again, some of the information, I thought was not necessary. It has this long list of items that the town clerk gives to everybody when they're elected or appointed. It seems that, again, could change based on what, you know, maybe there's separate ones that, like, town meeting members don't need to get everything that elected, you know, other elected, townwide elected officials do, things like that. So, again, if there's any questions, concerns.
All seems like common sense to
Yeah.
me.
Just streamlining it, it makes sense.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And in conjunction with this, we do currently have in our policies, we have an appendix, which is the listing of all the acceptable reasons for executive sessions. And I would suggest removing that too, because that changes. I mean, it changed fairly recently from nine reasons to 10, and I don't remember what the 10th reason is, but, you know, it could change again. And sometimes they tighten up some of the restrictions or loosen them up. I would suggest removing that and just, you know, that's what it is. It is what it is.
I don't know, we might want to still have Paul do orientation.
Well,
I'm
maybe
kidding.
we do.
I'm kidding. Again, sensible, makes a lot of sense.
And there was one other thing, because Christina Bruce, after she looked at these, she mentioned this to me about the select board meeting minutes 11-2, back to the 11, detailed guidance. It's pretty specific how minutes are updated. You know, James sends us the minutes, and then we look at them, and we can send him back the updates. It's true that may not always be the same, and I think we have the wrong title for him in the policy too. I thought that was what was mentioned. So, I mean, I would even suggest removing all that. Is that the one that I'm referring to? Yeah, the support services coordinator. James really isn't the support services coordinator. I think he's operations assistant or something like that. I don't even think we have anybody with that title right now. So, it seems that each new board kind of comes to a consensus about how that's done. You know, usually James does send them all out. Sometimes 2 or 3, you know, it used to be that at least 2 of us used to make multiple edits and send them back to James, and he had to coordinate them. I'm not sure if, you know, if I still make probably quite a few edits to all the minutes. I don't, you know, I don't think you guys usually do, which is fine. So there's a different process really now for this board versus what it was, you know, 3 or 4 years ago.
Agreed.
So, I mean, I would, you know, with your approval, I would just remove that entirely and make it be more of a practice rather than a policy. The practice that we want to follow is, and then with whoever's going to be doing, whoever's going to be consolidating all the edits, have the, you know, kind of agree with him how it should be done. So that it's not, you know, enshrined in policy, but just as new people maybe want to do it a little different way, we can do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Because everybody has their own style, and/or
Yes, for sure.
laws get tweaked, as you said, and somebody coming in is, you know, maybe a little bit more updated than somebody else. And, no, I think that makes sense. I think it makes a lot of sense.
So are you talking about striking it all together, or just,
I would, you know, unless anybody has any issue with that. I mean, or even just saying like what I said, that, you know, the board will work with staff to create a practice that's followed for editing minutes or.
but there's no rule?
Something like that is appropriate.
Okay.
It's simple, and, yeah, no, I think something like that would be appropriate, because it's going to change, and, I mean, but when it becomes a practice, it's less likely to change abruptly, I guess.
Well, it's probably not going to change abruptly, but I can see it changing tweaks to it, depending on who's on the board. And like you said, everybody has their own way that they like to, see minutes and, maybe they don't like the format or something, and so every time they,
And the view of minutes by different people, and I think you mentioned it, or we might have struck it someplace where it's not meant to be an exhaustive transcript
Right.
of each meeting. It's an overview of the discussions held, I guess.
right.
Well, my own question to you, Pat, is that if we decide to do an edit to the minutes and we send it to each other, is that violating open meeting laws?
You mean if you wanted to edit some of these things here and send it to me? Yes, it would be, yeah. So that's why we have another, our next meeting, we look at these again. But if you have anything that you want to change, I'll edit them so that we have the edits that we talk about tonight for the next meeting.
Okay.
And then, it's typical that we would then approve them at our next meeting, but we don't have to if there's still other changes that, you want to see.
Because there's always that opportunity
Yes.
in the meeting itself during the approval process
Right.
to make an edit and then
Yeah.
have that become part of the record. So, yeah, okay.
I think I'm different. I could go either way on that last one, having a little blurb of, some sort of board discretion or board decided versus nothing at all.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, it's not like we're not gonna, obviously we have to keep minutes, so how it actually gets done mechanically, I can see how that would go from board to board.
Right, and maybe I should say it that way in the other part that's about all the minutes, not have it say detailed guidance for select board, just mention that, add that paragraph somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can do that.
Any other comments? Thank you, Pat.
Okay,
Yeah, sure, Pat.
That was nice streamlining.
thank you.
Okay. The next item is, we're gonna discuss earmark requests for the House of Representatives proposed FY '27 state operating budget. And, I think we asked last time for, or I did anyway, for some history on, the types of things that we look for, and, I guess I asked more like, just to kind of gauge, like, we don't wanna push it, we don't wanna be too aggressive, but we, never hurts to ask either. So, so having looked at this, and everything, FY '26, 245,000, FY '25, 200,000, FY '24, 260,000. So, it gives us a target range to be in, and it gives you some ideas of some of the things that you might, the town may never approve, if it were, be part of a capital budget or something like that. So, so this is a very good tool, and I appreciate you putting that together. For the
And
last
then with
year.
the work that notably Christine Clancy and Fire Chief Gary Ryan are here, you can see I've placed their memos in the packet and also assembled the list for FY '27, and you can see it's right around that dollar mark. So this is just under 280,000. So my suggestion is I think we submit the whole slate to the delegation and see what we can get, because as you noted, in recent years we got 245, 200, 260. Let's submit them to 279, 700, which is the slate, and then if they come back and say, geez, Paul, we didn't think we could get you the funding for the, rail trail maintenance, okay, all right, so then we still end up with 250. So I think, I'd rather over ask than under ask and say,
Yep,
geez.
yep.
All they can say is no.
All they can do is say no, exactly. And
But
then
it's still within a reasonable
Exactly.
range,
Yep.
so I would tend to agree.
Yeah. And then also, if it does get pushed back, next month we'll do a similar thing with Senator Barrett, and if something gets bounced, we can then submit it with him, because as I explained annually, you don't need to, or actually want to, make the same request to the House Representatives and the Senator. What you want to do is triangulate and get it from both sides, because when they'll go to conference committee, the members' earmarks will stay, and so therefore we can get earmarks through Senator Barrett as well as those from our 3 reps. So again, we'll be revisiting this in a month.
So would it make sense maybe to combine some of them so that so they don't?
Oh, yeah,
pick
no,
one?
yeah, they want to, I'll ask them how they want to word it in their earmarks, but I just want,
Okay.
this would be the ingredients of it. They may just submit it as like 2 or 3 amendments, so they may
Because I
you
was
know,
thinking like combine the
they may-
firefighting
yeah,
ones. or
exactly.
something
They'll
like
combine the
that.
firefighting.
And then the transportation ones.
Exactly.
You know, the rail trail and the
Exactly.
Chelmsford Center traffic, and then
Yeah.
the Hazen Road
Right.
one, yeah.
So what they'll do is they'll basically say, oh, how they do it in the formal amendment would be, submit an amendment to increase the total category, like, public safety by $30,000, so that the town of Chelmsford could receive firefighting training structure and, and chainsaws and rescue chainsaws and so forth. So you may, at the end of the day, you may not get, a bunch of bullets. They'll be consolidated amendments. But we don't care how we get the cake, we just want the cake.
So the 9 bullets could
Yeah.
literally probably go
Yeah.
to 4 or 5 bullets, which,
Exactly.
the number's,
Yep.
the
So I'll
number's
work-
perfect,
Yep.
but,
Yep.
and when it looks like a lot,
Yep,
that's how it's perceived.
exactly.
Okay.
So if I think just to look for a motion to submit, these earmarks, and then that way I can report to the delegation that the select board has formally request these.
Any questions or comments for Paul regarding that? I think it all makes sense, and the number's right on target. And I do agree we should minimize bullets and combine, so I'd entertain a motion to such effect.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we direct the town manager to submit the earmarks as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous.
Great, thank you, and I want to thank Christine and Gary, and I'm going to ask Gary to come up in a minute to talk about the fire station bidding, but before that, we have to talk about the select board April meeting schedule, because we need to be scheduling hearings and such, into April now, and I've got a bit of a audible based upon what I've proposed. Right now, the election is Tuesday, April 7th, so this board is going to meet on Monday, March 30th, 3 weeks from tonight. And then Tuesday, April 7th is the town election. And then 2 days later, as is custom, the board would do a brief reorganization meeting. And then we didn't have the full board available on the following week, because normally we would meet on the 13th. And then therefore, we discussed and chose and proposed in the 21st. Over the weekend, I heard from Planning Board Chair Chris LaValle, he is not available to present to the Select Board on the 21st. So what I suggest would be, could we also have a meeting on Monday, the 13th? And I know, Jeff, you won't be here, but at least have Chris
I could zoom
make the
in.
presentation, either Zoom in, or we could not hold the vote until the 21st. But I think it's important, given that there's all these zoning articles, including that lighting bylaw, that that we do that with Chris and Kelly present, and they are both available on the 13th. So I guess what I'm asking is to add to this schedule the Monday, April 13th. And again, I'll try to keep it as an abbreviated meeting, possible, because I know the
Well,
full board won't be
I'm
present.
traveling that day, but I'll be in my
Okay,
hotel room by then, so
Okay.
I can zoom in, no problem.
Okay, all right.
Be
So,
Monday, the,
yeah, so it'll be Monday the 13th.
and then what's the 21st meeting?
And the 21st is a Tuesday, and that would be a 6 o'clock, full board meeting. And the reason for that is Monday, the 20th is Patriots' Day holiday. I know it's school vacation week, but the problem is town meeting starts the following Monday, the 27th. Hopefully, it only goes 2 sessions. But that's why it's important to have a meeting on the 21st, because if we don't, if town meeting runs long, you could be going from April, 13th to May 11th. 4 weeks without a meeting. So that's the proposal as amended now, would be to have 3 meetings in April. The quick meeting for the reorg on the 9th, and then a meeting on the 13th, Monday, and then Tuesday, the 21st.
So I haven't missed a meeting yet, and I wouldn't want to,
Okay.
but that 21st meeting,
Yeah.
I would, if we could do that by Zoom, then,
Oh, you can do it
That's not
hybrid.
a
Yeah,
problem.
we can do.
We can do
Yeah.
any of the meetings. that
Yeah,
way.
we can do
I don't want to, I haven't missed a meeting yet, I don't want to ruin
All
the
right, so
record, so.
so Jeff will be in by virtual on the 13th, and you'll be
Yeah.
virtual on the 21st. Okay,
Okay.
all right.
I mean, I
So-
hate to do that, but
So the intent is to,
Law allows it.
is to make the 13th be like a special meeting?
No,
or-
it'll be a regular meeting.
Okay, it will,
Yeah,
okay.
a
So we'll
regular
still have
meeting,
all-
because Jeff will be here. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
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 All right, great, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is town manager reports.
Okay, I'll be brief because I know we're heading into our third hour. The first thing to note, and it's important, and it's been out in the media, but we did receive formal notice from the Commonwealth that the town of Chelmsford is receiving a $122,769 grant award under the FY26 Body Worn Camera Grant Program. And therefore, I spoke to Chief Spence, the process is moving forward, and the goal is to have these cameras operational by the start of the upcoming fiscal year.
Is that giving us enough funding to get
That'll be
it
enough funding, we'll get
established?
there. Yep, we'll get there. So as you can see, they awarded, about 40 communities. This was the last year of this state multi-year grant program. So the 122,769 will get there, get the cameras, the equipment, storage, and everything else. So it's great news, and again, as you know, we have this in the budget. We have it agreed to with our labor unions. We're ready to go.
Excellent. I agree, it's great news. Question, at what point, 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years down the road, equipment needs to be replaced, servers being probably the largest expense of this whole situation. At what point does the town start planning for that in its budget?
We'll have a 5-year capital plan, so we'll start putting in the out years as we approach it for replacement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering
Yeah.
how that, went into effect.
Exactly.
And I think when they presented it, this kind of really gets us started and
Yep.
through a good chunk of that period. So
Right,
we have some
exactly.
time to start blending it in.
Yeah.
My recollection was we're good for about 5 years.
Yeah,
Then we have to really
exactly.
start thinking about
And we can
it.
see about, because the technology will change.
And that was pretty close to what our ask was, right?
Yep,
The
exactly.
122, it's only a little
Yep.
under.
A little under, but yeah, because what'll happen is like everything else, technology will change. I mean, 5 years, just like tasers and everything else. Oh, we want to get the new cameras because they can
Yeah,
do this,
exactly.
that, and the other thing. So that's great news.
Yes.
And again, I want to thank Chief Spence and the members of the department, who spearheaded this effort and in looking, because this is really going to be a blessing for them as well as the town. And we'll probably never see the cases that were avoided because the cameras were there, as you know. So that's great. And now I'm going to ask Chief Ryan to come up and speak because we've got good news in terms of the scheduling for our fire station bidding as well as the closure of the station, so.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Good evening, board members. So the station bids have gone out. That was last Thursday, March 5th. They went out in what is called bid docs. We've already seen traction on that. So that's good news. We've pre-qualified 16 general contractors. So just to give a little history, back when I think the last, like Pinehurst and Barica, when they did that project around 2021, 2022, 3 bidders. I talked to the chief recently, they had about 17. So that is good news for us. We're seeing traction.
Yeah, the bidding climate has really
It
changed
has
out
changed,
there. And
agreed.
it's back in our favor,
Yeah.
finally.
Thankfully, so.
Yeah.
This Thursday, we will open up the stations. We'll start Engine 3. We'll have the general contractors who are interested to do site walkthroughs for both Engines 3 and 5. The end of the month, March 31st, will be the last day for both stations, just so everybody's aware. That'll be the last station, day at Engines 3 and 5. And we are planning right now to move out some of the equipment on April 1st. But we have to coordinate that with the architect and the general contractor who gets awarded. So if you have any questions, happy to try to answer them.
So do you anticipate a bid award at the next meeting?
It'll either be the March 30th meeting or the April 9th meeting, because there's some talk today from our project manager that he was talking about delaying the bid opening, so it may not occur till April, so it may not happen until the April 9th meeting, because he's starting to get some feedback from.
April 9th or 13th?
Well, we may actually even do it on the 9th, Pat.
Oh, okay.
Because it depends on how quick we want to move, because we may ask, I know it's a reorg on the 9th, but if it helps us, because everything's time, if it helps us to get, a few more extra days, we may actually just ask for the bid award on the 9th.
Is our owner's project manager suggesting that we
He's
should
suggesting
give the
that-
general contractor the general contractors a little bit more time to digest and answer questions, et cetera.
Yeah.
And that would be the reason for pushing it up.
Yeah, that just came, it was
Right.
today.
Yeah, it was
We heard him basically getting some feedback on some of the things, saying, hey, we might need to, I don't know if he's looking at an addendum or something, but,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
okay.
And there's still site work to be done, like with the test pits and stuff. So that's kind of where we're in that process right now, between physically moving the stuff out of the stations and then allowing them, the geotechs, to come on to do test pits for both stations.
Well, I thought
For
that
the
was completed.
PFAS
That's not
issues and
completed
stuff
yet?
like that.
The geotech work hasn't been completed yet?
It's ongoing.
Oh,
for like the
I
PFAS,
understand, I
yes,
understand
yeah.
why, yep,
Right.
yep,
Fast, yeah.
Yep.
yep. Okay, okay. Any questions for Chief or Paul?
So when you're moving the equipment out, where are we gonna store that equipment?
So the emergency management building, which is behind engine 3. So for engine 3, it'd be pretty convenient, right across the parking lot. But for engine 5, that equipment will go as well. So the biggest stuff for both stations is really the exercise equipment. So we have contracted Precision Fitness to come out, they'll break down the equipment and physically move it to the emergency management building. So again, we're looking at probably 18, 19, 20 months of storage. So a lot of coordination and logistics taking place. So my thanks to everybody for their patience during
Yeah,
this
no,
process.
it's great to hear
It's,
that you've got that many interested bidders overall. And
It's
so
nice, yeah.
if we're getting that kind of participation from general contractors, I can only guess that the subcontract contingent is as interested.
And we've had more, and there's just some that have not worked on public safety projects, so, unfortunately, we had to put them to the side, but, even with that, that's still 16, 17 we have.
Now, if we
fantastic.
just get more elevator contractors in the state.
But we're seeing the same
And
thing.
some of
on
you
the-
know what I
Yeah,
mean by
yeah.
that.
We're seeing the same thing on the school roof as well, Bynum
Yes.
School. I mean, they were inundated with
We're not alone.
sub-bidders, to do that work. So it's good, finally, we caught a break.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Anything
Oh,
else?
so, thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
And then while on the public safety thing, just about 4 years ago now, we bid the town ambulance, emergency ambulance services, awarded a 3-year contract to what's Trinity Pride Star. A year ago, we extended it for the fourth, which was the first year of the 2 one-year options. So I'm informing the board that unless you have any objections, that tomorrow I will award the second and final 1-year extension for this contract at the 5% increase in the current annual fee called for in the bid document. So the upcoming fee will be $131,308. So that basically means just about a year from now, a little less than that, we'll bid the ambulance services again. So that's, so I just wanted to let the board know that that's where I'm going on this.
Do you want to?
I really don't need a motion, because
We already
you
did
awarded,
that.
you awarded the contract, 4 years ago, the board.
It's just an
with
option
the
that you're
but I just-
exercising.
I just wanted to notify the board and put it out there. That's where we're going.
Thank you.
And then, the other thing I wanted to let the board know of is that last week, on March 4th, they held the public hearing on not only the Chelmsford, second generation anticoagulant rodenticides bill, but as you can see by this list, and it goes on, a whole bunch of other communities as well as state authorization acts as well. The thing to note is that the people can still submit online testimony until Wednesday, March 18th at 10 a.m. This is probably something that may not, it would be interesting. They're going to finish formal session and most of their activity July 31st. Things like this sometimes get carried into the fall and then get done before they finish the end of the formal session in December. So again, just remind people that the legislation has been submitted. It's had a hearing. Now it'll go through the legislative process, and as I said, ones can still submit online testimony until Wednesday, March 18th at 10 a.m. And as you can see, Representative Cataldo was the lead sponsor on this bill. The final thing that I have under my report is the monthly double poll report, and as you can imagine, this time of the year, they're not doing a lot of work because of the snowbanks and winter conditions. So as of March 1st, there are still 58 double poles in the community, which is no change from last month, although in the last month, 2 double poles were removed and 2 were added. And you can see the 0 at National Grid. Now, National Grid's sort of the initial initiator of this, so they're being very cognizant of their work on double poles. There's also legislation at the State House, supported by the Municipal Association, to tighten up the restrictions and penalties on double poles, so that may explain their motivation. And you can see in our case, National Grid and Verizon are, which are the 2 main utilities, they're on their best behavior right now because of this legislation. But it's Comcast that I'm chasing, which is our cable provider, and you can see 29, the ball's in their court. So anyway, we'll keep on this, and again, as the conditions now improve, I will start reminding them again that they can get out there and do the work, which they couldn't do last month.
Well, they actually did the third
couple.
one, third one on the list here. Yeah, I noticed that they took care of that
They actually
one
took a
last
couple
week.
done, but, while it was going on, so that's where we are on double poles, and that concludes my report this evening.
Well, can I ask a
Sure.
question? It's off topic slightly, but since we've talked about our 2
Yep.
cable providers.
Yep.
When does, every so often, we have a discussion on the board about who can provide cable services
Yeah, no, we have,
to
yeah,
the
we have
town?
licenses, yeah.
When is the next time that the licenses are up for?
They're in back-to-back years. I want to say it's probably 2030, 2031.
I don't remember.
Yeah, because we did 10-year renewals, believe it or not.
did, okay.
And people understand, cable television is a non-exclusive license. So if Jeff wanted to come in tomorrow and provide cable television to the town, you can.
Okay.
It's not like, electricity and what have you. It's a non-exclusive license. So there actually are some communities that have 3 providers, believe it or not, closer to Metro Boston.
Yep,
They'll have remember RCN was in it at one point,
Right,
and then Verizon.
Spectrum's another big
Spectrum's
one. I
another
know up in
provider.
Maine, at my folks'
Right.
place up there, there's multiple.
Right, but
choices.
yet some cities like Lowell only have 1. But the key thing is our licenses are deliberately back-to-back. The renewal licenses now are only 10 years because the industry is moving so fast. And as you know, with the cutting of the cord and the internet provision, that's why the license periods are more truncated. And quite frankly, it's an antiquated state law. What the state ought to do is like Connecticut and other states, is just have a statewide, cable television license law and then just operate under it. Because what happens when it comes up for renewal, they'll look at, well, what's the industry standard now that has been awarded and submitted to the state in these other towns? And that becomes your guidance, because it's an industry that's losing subscribers, and therefore you really can't push them far, because they're gonna say, no, it's not economically viable.
I asked the question, and just to my reasoning for asking the question was just I've had almost several
Yeah,
families
Yeah.
ask me about that question,
Yeah.
because one of the providers, they're all having the same problem with service cutting out and
Yeah.
delay and,
Yeah.
channel switching and those, and I've literally heard complaints about this from people, and I just ask, like, how often do we revisit
yeah,
that?
it's like, it's
So,
every 10 years.
Okay.
And again, this was all done, remember, this started in the 1970s, right? When cable television came in. There was no bundling then. See, now what they do now is they bundle your cable with your telephone and your internet and everything else, and what's the real charge, everything else. So it's a totally different industry, and, you're right now, you're right. You're sort of 6 to 1, half a dozen of the other between our 2 providers. And that's why, their subscriber base is declining, and that's why Pete Padula is concerned, because it's only the revenue on your cable component of your bundle that goes to PEG access. It's not the full amount. So no, he doesn't get, it's not a surcharge on your telephone or your internet. It's only if you get the cable.
Okay.
So anyway, but
Okay.
it's not due up for another 5 or 6 years.
I didn't mind, I'm sorry to go off on a
it's
tangent,
all
I
right.
just wondered, because I have had
Yep.
several people approach me about one provider having a problem, so, anyway, okay. Appointments.
Yeah, the first are select board appointments, but the ones that have submitted to you are Caroline Parley to the Agricultural Commission for an expired 3-year term ending June 30th, 2027, and then 2 for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, One from Tina Kempner for a 3-year unexpired term, June 30th, 2028. And then from Sophie Thiem for a 3-year unexpired term ending June 30th, 2026. That's only a couple months, but that would add her to the renewals in June.
And I had James check today, and there are 2 vacancies, in fact, on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So it's not like we have to choose one or the other,
Perfect,
since there are
perfect.
2 vacancies there.
Well, reading through the qualifications, I would absolutely entertain a motion to approve the,
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the candidates for the Agricultural Commission and the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee as presented.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Okay, now I have one that I need your confirmation on, which is for the Historical Commission, Nancy Arroway for a 3-year term ending unexpired ending June 30th, 2028.
And there is a vacancy there.
Yeah, there is a vacancy there, yep.
Okay.
Any questions from anybody on that? Okay, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the town manager's appointment of Nancy Arroway to the Historical Commission as presented.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second, and if there's no further discussion, I would say all in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, meeting minutes approval. February 22nd. Oh, yeah.
This was the other
Yep.
special
Yep.
meeting we
Yep.
had,
Oh, that's right, yeah, because of the storm.
yeah. Right.
Okay. I will be abstaining from this vote because I was absent, but I would, if there's no discussion or changes necessary, I'd entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the Select Board Special Meeting from February 26th, 2026.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second, and if there's no further discussion, I would entertain a vote.
Aye.
That's unanimous, and I abstain. 1 abstention, 3 votes for. Okay, that's meeting minutes. Select Board Member Liaison Reports and Referrals. Pat, we'll go with you.
I just have a couple of quick things. First, a retired Chelmsford firefighter, Arthur Anderson, passed away last week. He's been retired, I did not even know this firefighter. He'd been retired, I think, since 1990s or something, so. But he was a retired Chelmsford firefighter, so condolences to his family. And this morning, I was at the police station, and Officer Christopher Chipchak was promoted to the rank of sergeant on the Chelmsford Police Force, so congratulations to Officer Chipchak, and that's all I have this evening.
Jeff?
Yeah, well, being wintertime, most of my committees are fairly quiet. I know Carl Biscoff had stepped down from chairmanship of the Conservation Commission. Have they appointed anybody new at this point?
We will come to you. We have not received an applicant. In fact, his last meeting will now be tomorrow night. It was originally going to be the end of the month, but things are moving for him faster than he envisioned.
Okay, well, I'll try to reach out to them once they do a reorg and try to get some correspondence with them. Also, I know the cemetery is fairly quiet, although we are heading into mud season, and I'm just asking everybody to be patient. It's not our first rodeo, but this is the worst time. I mean, once the melting starts, and they're trying to get in and dig graves, and as other vendors are trying to do their work, we run into problems with messes, and the guys do a great job to get everything cleaned up by Mother's Day. So all I ask is just be aware of their challenges right now. Excuse me. And believe it or not, parade committee is in full mode. I know it's March, and I know there's still snow on the ground, but we're in our home stretch right now, folks. I mean, we're meeting tomorrow, and then we've only really got, April, May, and June, and a couple of meetings at the end of June, and then we're off and running again. A couple of things that happened at the last meeting was we announced our parade marshal, which is David Hedison. David devoted 40 years to the Chelmsford Housing Authority, and had done wonderful things as their executive director, brought many units of houses and millions of dollars to Chelmsford. So congratulations to David. I think it's a very, very well-deserved honor. The other thing, sponsorship and banners are now available. Please go to chelmsfordparade.org. We'll be putting up the new design for the summer banner for the 250th. The other thing is, we'd love to see more floats, and we're going to have prize money again this year. So anybody who wants to get involved and do something like that. The last thing, we need committee members. I mean, like I said, it'd be great if people would start coming, see how we do what we're doing these last few months going into the parade. We meet the second Tuesday of every month, which will be tomorrow night, and all volunteers are welcome. And we have a great group. We have a lot of fun and a lot of laughs. So hopefully we can get some people to come in and start adding to our little army over there.
Jeff, can I just ask you a quick question? And I think you have different tiers, but the cost of a banner for the general public's knowledge.
Well, the banner's $500 if you're just going to get a banner, but if you're going to do sponsorships, some of the sponsorships include the banner, or include both summer and winter.
Okay.
So that, I don't know what the final decision was on the sponsorship tiers, because I wasn't at the last meeting. But if you go on the website, you can get all that information, chelmsfordparade.org. It's all there.
Did it?
Yep.
Thank you. Aaron?
All right, we're going to go pretty quick, too. So there is one other select board policy that we can take up after the new board is seated. It's Section 10, it's Division of Values, which is the old process. I've already started working on that, and I'll bring that up in a couple of meetings just to put on the agenda, do like we did tonight with the sections that Pat brought up. And I will take every opportunity I can to remind people to please vote, because I'm fortunate enough to sit in this chair. I can't volunteer to do my other favorite duty, which is helping people, helping the town clerk process the election. So please get out there and vote. Your voice really does matter. And then if you can indulge me for an extra minute, because there's a handful of people I want to recognize, so that the Chelmsford High Theater Guild made it through to the preliminary rounds. I was fortunate enough to be able to go down and see their performance, and the room was palpable. People were waiting to clap, and you could feel that in the room. And when those kids finished, it was the place went alive, and it was probably the loudest I've heard in a long time. So the story resonated, the acting resonated. We won several acting awards. So Adam Pinto and Lily Rogers won an award. The ensemble, Morgan Fay, Isabella, Sophie Allen, Riley Tambo, for portraying the past. They were dressed up in character costumes for their different periods and their musical skills. And then our technical team, Lily DiMombro, in for her costume design, which we have a little costume department at the high school, which is not everybody has that, and they do so well at making the most of what they have. Mickey Lays and Josh Woolman actually received recognition for writing, directing, and arranging the song that was sung, and they performed it live. So they were actually somebody on the stage playing, and again, it changed the aura of the show. And then Yasmina Raji received recognition by her peers at Sharon High School, which was the host school this year, as being the best stage manager. And you watch these kids set up and take down under a time limit. It was just really exciting to go. And if you like, obviously we want to support our kids, but if you like theater, I have to stop and remind myself every single time when they do this show called Well-Behaved Women, every time I see these kids acting or the bands, I'm like, they're only high school. I've seen professional theater shows where I don't see some of that same quality. So they are, this coming weekend, they'll be down at Framingham, hopefully to move on to the finals. They do have some competition when it gets to this level. It's pretty tough competition, but it's just these kids did an amazing job. The story was moving. the awards were well-deserved, and just be thinking of them. And if you want to take the ride, it is open to the public. I think MET charges $15 online or $20 at the door. You can you'll go see, 6 or 7 shows. It's well worth it if you haven't been.
So Aaron, is that the event where they have 10 minutes to set up their,
Yeah, they have 5
They're
minutes to
set,
take up
and
and
then-
take down, yeah.
and then do their performance
Yeah.
and so much time to take it down? I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty intense for these kids.
It is, and I'll say, again, I'm a little biased here because I've supported this group for a long time, but there's a period in the show where there's an on-stage costume, and the way the lighting and the music plays, and Lily turns back around, you're like, it takes you back. I mean, again, if you have an appreciation for theater, I know that this particular show would definitely interest folks. So thank you for the extra time, but I think it's important to recognize those kids and their successes.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So-
I mean, I was blown away at Oklahoma, like that, the amount of talent we have at that school. It's crazy.
Yeah,
And it's year after year.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's, I mean.
yeah, we do pretty good at making the prelims,
Yeah.
getting through to the
Yeah.
semifinals.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron.
Awesome, yeah, thank you.
I'll be very quick tonight. We had a great presentation by Fire Chief Ryan, on the fire station, so I won't talk about that. School Building Committee for the Parker Middle School building that we're applying to MSBA, Mass School Building Authority, for some help with some funding for that school. So we meet a week from Thursday, and our owner's project manager is pushing. Last meeting, I spoke about the 2,000-page submission that we needed to do to Mass School Building Authority, and typically it doesn't take this long, but our owner's project manager this week did write to one of the officials at Mass School Building Authority and said, do you have any idea when it's coming back? And the response was simply, it's in the hands of the upper council, or
We're busy.
whatever terminology they use.
Yeah, we're
They're busy. So we still await, and we look forward to their approval of our submission, because it allows us to get to next steps. So our next meeting is a week from Thursday. I do hope that we have some kind of answer by then, and that will allow us to further our discussions and then get further down the road, because we're about to get to that stage where the rubber will hit the road. And I encourage everybody in town to really take a look at these meetings, and at some point there'll be more visioning, maybe not visioning sessions, but public input sessions, just so that everybody can kind of see the path that we're about to travel and try to gain support. So as chair of that committee, I just encourage everybody in town to really, those that are seeing me say this tonight, grab your neighbor and say, hey, please pay attention. This is one of the most important projects that this town has embarked on. And I'll say it again, it will be the largest project we've probably ever embarked on, probably even larger than sewer. But that's why it's so important to pay attention now. But we have not built a school in Chelmsford for over 50 years, and we deserve it. The kids deserve it, speaking of the kids and how they come up through. And I think we're settling in on a pathway, but I just really, really encourage the whole town, seniors, juniors, otherwise, to pay attention, because it will impact your taxes to a certain degree. But by the same token, the young folks in town, please get involved. Please pay attention to this, because we need this, and we need it to keep our property values up, to further the
That was
education.
going to be my other point, Pat. I
There's
know
so
people
many
think about
points
the
that are
taxes, but
important
they
to
don't
this.
think about the value to your home.
Exactly.
If you go to sell
And-
your home, we have a fantastic school system, and it only makes it worth that much more.
Exactly, and these kids deserve it, I mean,
For sure.
we haven't built a school in town for over 50 years. It's very important at this point. Please spread the word as much as you can, pay attention to this coming up, and please support it as we go down the road with it, and we'll keep getting out there and getting the job done. So with that, I will finish up there, And if there's nothing else this evening, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Make motion to adjourn.
You can second that.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.